even if I wanted to go. My schedule wouldn't allow it. 4 o'clock, wallow in self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss. 5 o'clock, solve world hunger. Tell no one. 5:30, jazzercise. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked. Of course, if I want the loathing to 9, I could still be done in time to lay in bed, stare at the ceiling, and slip slowly into madness. But what would I wear?
Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad.
I would never unalive myself, and I got a lot of angry people sending me messages right now. But gee, what do you know? I found the article. Well, there's many articles out there now saying that the shooter in Australia was former IDF, allegedly. Furthermore, they leaked the motherfucker's home address. Do you want to see something really interesting, though? Do you want to see something really fucking interesting? Gee, look what country was searching this exact specific address. It had never shown up really on search trending before, except a few days ago. Yep, they were searching that specific address, as well as searching that specific name. There's so much I want to say. I'm just going to leave it up to y'all, though. What do you guys think of this? Interesting, eh? Interesting.
Well, apparently we're not going to war with Venezuela. My sources were wrong. I just wanted to share how it is that I got the information, if you allow me. Last night I had a dream. President Maduro came to me in the dream and he said, Tucker, El Presidente Trump is declaring el war on Venezuela. I need your help, O Tucker. The dream was so real that I had to check if it was true or not. So I called Candace Owens. She said that all dreams are totally credible sources of information. That's where she gets all her information from. So now I know we're definitely going to war with Venezuela. I had to check with a government source one last time before I leaked this totally credible information. So I called Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she said, Tucker, you go ahead and leak that information. I also had a dream about it. So that's basically what happened.
In 1999, JFK Jr. and George Magazine released this book, The 250 Ways to Make America Better. There are actually a lot of really good ideas in this book, but this is one I find interesting. Abolish the CIA. That is a worthy act in itself, and it would have good side effects. As for side effects, we would call into question the whole cult of secrecy that hides things from Americans that foreigners know. For example, Castro knew we were trying to kill him, only we did not. It would make us assess realistically the intelligence activities we do need, now largely done by the NSA. It would stop the buildup of CIA assets, who are a rogue force for other governments' dirty tricks and for our own. Where else would Nixon's men recruit Watergate break-in men, but from the ranks of former CIA operatives? It does make you wonder, what would happen if we abolished our CIA? Would we have this mockingbird media we have today? Would we have the division that we're currently seeing in the country, where 50% of the country sees things one way and the other half sees things the other way? Probably not. Now, if you're watching this video and you have no clue what I'm talking about, go back and research the Smith-Mundt Act. Look up Project Mockingbird. You think we're not being propagandized? Think again.
Why aren't schools teaching that there was no federal income tax the first 137 years America was a country? Because there was no legal federal income tax between 1776 until 1913, when they amended or changed the U.S. Constitution. They imposed an income tax for 12 years during the Civil War, and in 1894 and 1895, but that was found unconstitutional. It was in the Supreme Court case Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust Company, and they struck down the federal income tax. And it remained unconstitutional for another 17 years until 1913, when they passed the 16th Amendment and changed the Constitution. And it has been a little over 120 years since they did that, which means there was no legal federal income tax for the majority of American history. People think that all of these taxes, all of this government intrusion into our lives is the norm, but it is not the norm. This is the norm. This is 1776, and the reason America was the manufacturing center of the world in 1912. America had the largest and most prosperous middle class in the history of the world. American steel, American oil, American automotive. But in 1913, they changed the Constitution, which was the same year that they created a national bank. So right at the same time as they gave the government the ability to reach into our pockets and take our money, they also gave a small group of powerful bankers a monopoly over the printing of the dollar. And they print money out of thin air. They lend the money that they printed to the government, and the government agrees to pay them back with interest using the money that they take from us. And that is why the dollar has been so devalued. That is why you can't afford a house. And it's why college is so expensive. Because for 137 years, America was about prosperity. And since then, it's been about whatever this is. And this is why I wrote a book on the banking system. And in my courses, we learn real history. Because if our kids are going to have a fighting chance, they have to know the truth. Check out my private homeschool community. And Cubs to Bears, books. ClassicalLearner.com.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. Just going to the House floor to drop a bill I've been working on. When the president came out with his tariff plan, I started thinking of how the folks could get some of their hard-earned money back. And I know some folks have proposed a $2,000 check to every American. I got something a little different. I want to increase the standard deduction for all tax-paying Americans, and do that with $4,000 for joint filers and surviving spouses, $3,000 for heads of household, and $2,000 for all other Americans. It would increase your standard deduction, and it'll put you in a lower tax bracket, meaning your taxes overall are decreased, which I think is pretty cool. You see some actual savings, and it wouldn't cause inflation, which some people have theorized that if we write a check to everybody that it could do just that. And this really just means lower taxes and more money in your dadgum pocket. I think everybody will support that. And I'm calling it the Trump Tariff Rebate Act. So we're going to see what happens. It's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable because that ain't the way we've done business around here. But dadgummit, if we're going to put these tariffs in effect, let's see some of that money in our own pockets and quit paying so much taxes. Anyway, thank y'all for sending me here.
I'm excited to announce that my bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act, that criminalizes gender-affirming care on any minor under the age of 18, has passed the House of Representatives. So I would also like to thank 3 Democrats that voted to protect kids, Cuellar, Davis, and Gonzalez. Thank you so much for protecting children. Unfortunately, there were 4 Republicans that voted no and refused to protect kids. Those Republicans are Evans from Colorado, Fitzpatrick, Kennedy of Utah, and Mike Lawler from New York. I don't know why they can't protect kids, but that's too bad. But I'm still excited my bill passed, and it goes to the Senate next. Thank you so much for your support.
And even that CNN fake news, they're back there. The camera's roaring. The light will go off in any second now. They hate when I mention their name because they know it's only bad because they're crooked as hell. They're fake news, you know, the term. I think it's one of my better terms, Sid, right? I don't think anybody takes it away. We have some good ones, Pocahontas, but I think fake news is probably pretty good. The only problem is it's actually not strong enough. You know, fake, it's crooked, corrupt, disgusting news, but we'll have to do with fake. But fake isn't strong enough. That's the only problem. It's actually, I wish I could come up with a word that's really more powerful than fake, but fake is good enough. But CNN with the attack on Iran, they said, well, I used the word we obliterated them. You know why? Because the pilots told me they know better than anybody, and the pilots told everything, and then we had visuals. And these pilots are coming back after having endured the most dangerous ride. I said, did you guys, I had them all to the Oval Office after 2 weeks after the attack, I had them all. I had the pilots and I had the people that maintained the planes. I had the people that fly the tankers. You know, we had 52 tankers because we had the 7 major planes. We also had 4 planes flying in different, of the B-2, flying in different directions. Iran didn't know what the hell was happening. But we had a whole force of F-22s, most beautiful fighter jet ever made, most powerful fighter jet ever made. And F-35s, a brand new one. And they're stealth. Believe me, they're stealth because they went into Iranian airspace and Iran never saw anything. And it was, think of this, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was dark at night. There was no moon at all, no light, no nothing. And every single bomb went right down those air shafts into granite mountains, right down those air shafts. At 2 o'clock in the morning with no vision, every single bomb hit its target. And CNN said on the way back, they were on the way, they hadn't even landed yet, well, maybe the attack wasn't that bad. Because I used the word obliteration. I turned out to be right. The Atomic Energy Commission shortly thereafter said it was total obliteration. Iran actually said it was total obliteration. In fact, they said, touchdown, yeah, it was a touchdown. But it was amazing. And we've never had an apology from CNN. Oh, Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show.
This in front of me, this is the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act of 1986, authored by a member of Congress in 1986 from the state of New York. His name, Chuck Schumer. He wrote the law that passed almost unanimously that makes it legal to blow drug boats out of the water. It happened in the 80s a lot, in the 90s a lot. Go ahead, look it up, folks. Chuck Schumer, the author of this bill that made what we're doing with Venezuelan drug boats fully legal. We don't need permission from the rest of the world. Chuck Schumer gave us that in 1986.
The attack on Bondi Beach was 2 days ago, 12/15. Count 10 days from then is Christmas. What if there's multiple 10 days of darkness? QPost 88, 10 days, darkness. Scare Tactics MSM. What if we're in the final 10 days of darkness and it ends on Christmas? It's always darkest before the dawn, like the Batman movie. It was an attack on a beach, like when we stormed the beaches of Normandy on 6/6. Take the 6s, flip them upside down, that's 9/9. What if this was a marker, like QPost marker 9, like Pam Bondi, Pam, Think Mirror, Map, QPost 365, News Unlocks Map, Extraction, QPost 101, Map, Extraction, 11/6 TP Pub. What if TP is Tina Peters? What if Tina Peters created a map of the election fraud and she's working with Sidney Powell to show who it's all connected to? Attack on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. Sidney Powell equals release the Kraken. The truth about the election fraud. The preview of Melania's film was released today. It shows her in the elevator pushing the floor number 66, like the date of D-Day, 6/6. 6 + 6 is 12. What if D-Day, the final 10 days of darkness, is in December? 6 + 6 is 12. QPost 2629, D-Day Patriots, we will have our country back. Posted on December 19th. Look closely at December 19th this year. The interstellar comet 3I Atlas makes its closest approach to Earth on December 19th. Sky event, QPost 1183. Connect, learn, Sky event. 2016 election. Like Tina Peters. What if the 3I Atlas comet is the Sky event? And what if we all connect to the quantum satellites in the EBS and learn about the election fraud that Tina Peters risked her life to collect and is working with Sidney Powell to release the Kraken? What if we are in the final 10 days of darkness? And what if D-Day is Christmas? We will have our country back, Patriots.
This is freaking huge. Armed citizens stopped 48% of all criminal shooters last year, and the FBI was just caught massively lying about those numbers in their public reports. They recorded, get this, none of them. 0%. Now, you and I and everyone else have seen those local heroes on social media, but rarely do we ever see these stories in mainstream media. Well, the script is about to flip because a new study by the Crime Prevention Research Center reveals that armed civilians stopped over 1/3 of active criminal shooters between 2014 and 2024, nearly 10 times higher than FBI's reported 3.7% average. And again, with even more Americans getting armed post-2020, just last year alone in 2024, civilians stopped half of all criminal shooters. Yet, as I just stated, the FBI recorded 0 of them. You might be asking, how is this possible? Well, while digging for the study, researchers found that police were often falsely credited instead of the armed civilian, which is a recording pattern that clearly increased over the last 10 years. But now this begs the question, why would they work so hard to hide the significant benefits of an armed public?
First time in our lives that the entire country got kind of medically bamboozled.
Yeah.
And a lot of people regret taking the vaccine, and I don't know anybody who regrets not taking the vaccine. It was a weird time, like a very bizarre experiment on how you can get people to comply, how you can restrict their movement, that you can implement these sort of devices to, if you're not physically forcing them to do it, make their life as shitty as possible. And Fauci's been quoted as saying that. You want to get to drop their ideological bullshit and get vaccinated. That's what he said, remember?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a psyop, and now we know.
CDC is actually being sued for operating an illegal and unconstitutional 72-dose hyper-vaccination schedule. All 72 of these doses from birth to age 18, not one has been tested in combination. And particularly the cumulative safety of 72 doses was never studied. So it's literally just experimental at this point. Nobody knows what's going to happen with all of these doses. And that's exactly why they're being sued, to kind of dismantle this dangerous program. And so this is huge. This whole vaccine ideology is now crumbling down as people begin to understand the real risks and just how absurd it is. And even Trump highlighted that. He said it's a travesty. We're injecting beautiful babies with all these toxic loads of needles. It's stupid, and it's got to stop.
What do you think about the grand jury impaneling for the grand conspiracy that's taking place right where you are right now, there in the Southern District of Florida? There is now a grand conspiracy that is going to span, I think, years in order to try and rig elections against President Trump, rig, obviously, lawfare against President Trump and yourself. And people are, it seems like they're quite nervous about this one, as we have been fed from some of the people inside of this process, teasing out like this is going to be the true main course for justice in Trump term 2. Your take, General.
Yeah. So for everybody, the conspiracy never stopped. So it wasn't like people go, there's an expiration of whatever crimes they committed back in Russiagate. That conspiracy continued, and that's what we're seeing with this grand jury down here in Florida. And the things that we're hearing, I mean, all the lawyers are all, like people are lawyering up, et cetera, as we have seen. So here's where I think we're at. I think into the new year here, we're going to probably see, if not a lot of subpoenas issued, we're going to see some indictments issued. I also think that the president, I think he'll talk about it tonight a little bit. I think he's going to talk about our elections and and what has happened to our election system, because this is all part of the same conspiracy. You know, if you start off with Russiagate as the beginning, right, in 2016, summer of 2016, even earlier than that now that we know, but summer of 2016, and then you continue to follow the conspiracy to basically undermine the Constitution of the United States of America and undermine a duly elected president during Trump's first term. That was sort of Russiagate. Then you had Impeachment-gate. Then you had the election. And I'm going to tell you, the rigged elections are very real. This is not conspiratorial. I think Trump is going to, he knows it, and we're going to see a lot more of that. So this conspiracy continued. And we just talked about the raid at Mar-a-Lago, Jack Smith, right? Geez, where'd that name go? Well, believe me, I'm part of a federal case against him. It's a civil case, but we are working with the Department of Justice on that one to turn it into a criminal case, which they should do. So this conspiracy continued. I think what we're going to find is that these kinds of things take time if they're done properly. I know people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not. But I will tell you the way that it needs to be done, you know, by the book, legally and morally. And they are going to discover, because people will start to talk. Once subpoenas are issued, and there's been some issued, I understand, through the lawyer network, that people are going to start to talk. And I've been on your show before and mentioned a couple of names of those people that I think are going to be the easiest ones to talk first. Guys like Clapper, right, if he makes it to the next year. So I think it's good news. I think it's positive news. It's news that needs to come, and people are waiting for it. And I think those are the two areas that President Trump is going to have to deal with, and he has been, you know, in his own way, in his own style, and that's accountability of these people that committed this conspiracy to undermine the Constitution of the United States of America. And the other is our elections, and making sure that our elections are fair. We have to get people will go vote if they believe that the elections are fair.
Yes.
And that's what has to happen. And people off-cycle elections like the midterms and all this kind of stuff, people have to go vote, and they will vote if they believe that there's been positive changes. And I know that President Trump, believe me, he's up to his eyeballs in that. I know that for a fact. And he's going to do all that he can to make sure that our elections are as fair as he can possibly make them. And it won't be easy, because there's going to be a lot of people who don't want them to be fair fighting against him. And that's where the American people, your audience, has to stand our ground and say, this is what we demand.
Which is Flag Day and also
Trump's
the president's
birthday.
Yeah. It's going to be incredible. We're going to have the Patriot Games for high school athletes across the entire nation. We're going to have a national prayer event on the Mall to return this country back to God, because we can't do any of this without him.
So, Monica,
and then, of course, it's going to culminate on July 4th with a spectacular national celebration.
You have to tell us, because we know the president doesn't like to sleep. That's not what he does. But he also loves to produce. So how is it getting a phone call from him about every little detail about celebrating America?
Well, he is probably the most precise, detail-oriented president we have ever had.
What I think about Trump, people ask me all the time, hey, what do you really think about Trump? Well, here's my truth, the way that I see it. Trump isn't trying to burn down the entire global system like everyone thinks he is. He's trying to reposition America inside the system to protect it as the global order falls apart. At his core, Trump is a nationalist. He believes in sovereignty and strength and in putting America first. But he's not reckless. He knows you can't just pull the plug on institutions like the Federal Reserve, NATO, or global trade overnight without triggering a collapse that would also take America down with it. So instead of trying to smash the system all at once, he sort of bends it. He forces it to reveal its cracks on its own. Sometimes he makes tactical concessions. He plays along with the parts of the machine because survival is the first priority, right? He reforms where he can. He slows the rot where he can. And he buys time for America to rebuild its strength from the inside out. If he went after the globalists head on openly from day one, he'd be eliminated before he even had a chance to do anything for real. He's smart enough to know that. I think anyone can agree. His real goal isn't to save the global system. It's to save America through the collapse of the global system, because it will. He's preparing America to stand on its own when the globalist house of cards finally falls. He's not perfect. He's not a savior. But he's playing a long game most people don't even realize is happening. And honestly, at this stage of history, courage and clarity matter more than perfection. Trump is walking a tightrope between a world that's already collapsing and a future that isn't even written yet. And whether you love him or hate him, he's one of the very few who actually stands in that gap. That's how I see it.
Salut papa. Joyeux Noël.
You dropped that bomb on me, baby. You dropped that bomb on me. But you damn, you dropped that bomb on me, baby. You dropped that bomb on me. Boom!
Hey guys, okay, I've got a bit of a team now working with me, just people that have seen my videos and now helping me look into things. And we've been looking into a bit of the background of Erica Kirk and her mom. And I find it interesting that Erica Kirk promotes this kind of like trad wife lifestyle when her mom, Loretta Ann Laurie Abbas Fransby, has a background tied to the Abbas family with Syrian, Lebanese, and Italian roots, which doesn't fully match Erica's all-American Catholic narrative. Laurie has a long Department of Defense history, including a Joint Service Achievement Medal for classified operations during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, working in network security and defense tech. Her move to Arizona from Ohio is murky, with vague details about her first husband, Kent Fransby, Erica's father, and second husband, alongside a quick pivot to high-level contracting. She started 3 companies serving defense and intelligence agencies, notably E3 Tech, which specializes in EMP protection tech for clients like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. Her current life, studded leather jackets, assault rifles at shooting ranges, and trips to Israel for tech conferences, clashes with Erica's claims of a wholesome upbringing volunteering with her sweet mother. Erica's involvement with the Romanian Angels charity, part of her nonprofit Everyday Heroes Like You, and Erica's early modeling career, which included participation in Trump-affiliated beauty pageants, which promoted a glamorous, high-profile lifestyle, are both at odds with her current traditional narrative. And we don't even know much about Erica Kirk pre-Charlie, like where was she or what was she doing 2013 to 2015-ish, and why did she pass off old photos to seem like a normal fashion model? What do you guys think? Comment below.
Barry Weiss refers to herself as a journalist. Like out loud, she tells people that.
Candace Owens. Okay?
Okay.
One time, a friend of Charlie's.
Yeah, just like in the way at one time Erica Kirk was a wife of Charlie's.
One time, an employee of Turning Point.
Which gives her some good insight. Can't believe I'm Team Candace on anything.
One of the main peddlers of these conspiracies.
Watch that again and see how Erica's body is contorting to the reality that a demon is now taking over, and I'm not kidding.
One of the main peddlers of these conspiracies.
I was a full-time evangelical minister for over a decade. Yeah. I have been face to face with some of the darkest of the dark, and my friends, I'm telling you, this is right up there.
She is building her business off of these lies.
That is the dumbest ass comment. Erica and Turning Point have pulled in over $140 million and counting. I had never heard of Erica Kirk before her husband was assassinated. Candace Owens was already the #1 podcast in the world. She didn't need this. What she needed was to know the truth about what happened to a close friend of hers. Why doesn't Erica Kirk feel the same way? When she did that interview, and there are a lot of them, there are a lot of interviews to sift through. She did one with Jesse Waters where he asked her, do you believe they have Charlie's killer? She answered, I trust our team, her team, the FBI, who has a lot of questions to answer, yet has literally buried everything, including the space where he was shot and killed. Paved right over that. She had no questions. She was letting it lie. No pun intended.
What do you want to say to her and the other people putting these lies out into the world right now? Stop.
What the fuck? What is that?
That's it. That's all I have to say.
So what I hear you saying is,
stop.
Oh, honey, you and that demon you've latched onto are in for a hell of a ride.
What did I lie about?
Who is this child Erica is hugging? Who is this man? This is a huge discovery that you don't want to miss, and I think I need your help for part 2. It's from 2015. Almost no one has seen it. Here we have Erica Kirk and Tyler Bowyer. Is this Erica's mother, Lori? But the real question I want an answer to is, who is this man? Early in the video, we see Erica hugging this child. This is clearly a very strong and trusting relationship. Later in the video, watch this engagement closely. Now remember, this is 3 years before Erica met Charlie Kirk. And Tyler Bowyer is under some extremely suspicious scrutiny right now.
Tyler Bowyer is the only paid executive listed for America's Turning Point. Charlie Kirk is not even listed. So it seems strange to me that in FY24, $8.6 million mysteriously got transferred out of the main company into the shell company managed by Tyler Bowyer.
Can we piece this all together? If any of you can help me find out who this other man is?
Charlie Kirk wasn't even supposed to be in Utah. He was scheduled to be at Virginia Tech University. Okay. Why Utah? According to Utah state law, any event doesn't have to have first responders. No ambulance. You see, this is how, and they're telling you and I that a 22-year-old snot-nosed kid was behind this. Stop. Okay? We got him, wait a minute now, 4.5 hours after the shooting. The BBC out of London had a biographical picture of this young man, Tyler Robinson, who never shot a gun before. Never. How did the BBC know that only 4.5 hours after Kirk's assassination, this was the man? Whereas the FBI didn't even catch him until another 29.5 hours. Just like Oswald, okay? Biographical picture, everything about, see, these are patsies, okay? So, Charlie Kirk was a threat. He was running for the presidency in 4 years.
I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up.
I am just realizing how fucking pissed off I am about this whole Charlie Kirk thing. It's like he was just wiped clean off the face of the earth. Like, just 1 minute he was there, talking more than I talk. Brilliant, outspoken, patriot, all-American, young, early 30s, and he's gone. The stage is gone. He's gone. I know they had that big funeral that everybody got to see on TV, but for me, that wasn't it enough. That wasn't it. I didn't hear anything about a burial. I didn't hear his parents come out and make a statement. And he's just gone. No one's talking about it. There's gun owners out there that say there's no way that could have happened the way it happened. The direction of the bullet wound. Why did they clean it up the way they did? Everything they say that was going on before that with Israel and him saying he wouldn't take donations because of Tucker. I'm fucking pissed.
1776. As you know, our great nation was founded in the crucible of revolution in that year. Now, as we enter the Christmas season some 250 years later, we are proud to provide 1776 with a whole new modern meaning for our joint force. As he announced to the nation last night, thanks to President Trump's unwavering commitment to our warriors and the provisions provided in the One Big Beautiful Bill, more than 1.45 million service members will, in the coming days, receive a one-time tax-free bonus of $1,776. This has never happened before. Every member of our military, E1 to 06. We're calling it the Warrior Dividend, a direct investment in the brave men and women who carry on the legacy of our armed forces every single day. This Warrior Dividend serves as yet another example of how the War Department is working to improve the quality of life for our military personnel and their families. I can think of no better Americans to receive this check right before Christmas. Whether it's for pay, housing, faith support, all elements of what we're doing are to rebuild our military. So to the American warrior, President Trump and I and the entire War Department, we have your back. We thank you for your service, and we thank you for your sacrifice. We love you and your families, and we wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Last year, we had 230,000 Americans who were on the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare plans, who didn't know it. They found out when the IRS agents called up and said, you guys have this free program in your family. Did you know you have it? Brokers had given them these programs, made money off the U.S. government. They had no idea it had happened. The state of California has taken tens of millions of dollars from the federal government, providing free health insurance for illegal immigrants in California. We're going to get that money back.
Doctors assume a solemn obligation to protect children. Yet doctors across the country now provide needless and irreversible sex-rejecting procedures that violate their sacred Hippocratic oath by endangering the very lives that they are sworn to safeguard. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, peddled the lie that chemical and surgical sex-rejecting procedures could be good for children who suffer from gender dysphoria. They betrayed the estimated 300,000 American youth ages 13 to 17, conditioned to believe that sex can be changed. They betrayed their Hippocratic oath to do no harm. So-called gender-affirming care has inflicted lasting physical and psychological damage on vulnerable young people. This is not medicine, it is malpractice. We're done with junk science driven by ideological pursuits, not the well-being of children. A peer-reviewed report published by the HHS Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health last month confirms that sex-rejecting procedures impose medical dangers and lasting harm on children who receive these interventions. So today we are taking 6 decisive actions guided by gold standard science and the week 1 executive order from President Trump to protect children from chemical and surgical mutilation. This morning I signed a declaration. Sex-rejecting procedures are neither safe nor effective treatment for children with gender dysphoria.
There's no death certificate. There's no ballistics report. There was no crime scene investigation. There were no paramedics. There were no police swarming it right after. There was a plane that left 30 minutes right after that was 20 minutes away from the venue. There was a funeral held 11 days after in a stadium that was or wasn't booked 4 months before, that was booked in 11 days and put together with pyrotechnics and WWE-style showmanship. You have a shooter that left the screwdriver on the roof, changed 2 times, and left the rifle, assembled the rifle, disassembled the rifle in 6 seconds. Then they found the rifle on Palantir property. Somehow he reassembled the rifle without the screwdriver that he left on the thing. Just all of it. None of it makes sense.
So
and
this
it's
is
the
JFK
same
all over again.
It's the exact same pattern down to the magic bullet that supposedly a 30-06 or whatever the heck it was or whatever that was stopped by Superman's bones. The exact same, the patsy, all of it is JFK.
Do you think the guy that they're saying that shot him, which doesn't seem to be believable.
You mean the guy that went to college for a month at a CIA school whose parents were in the government did something that what? No, I don't.
So is he going to go down?
I believe it as much as I believe that a bullet whizzed past the president's ear.
Yeah, I know. Do you think that he's going to go down for the crime?
I think he will not make it to trial.
Another terror attack's just taken place, this time in Australia. Bondi Beach, there was gunmen, 12 people confirmed dead. And if you just look at the footage, it's fake. It's a setup. It's staged. It's a hoax. It's a false flag. No, this one's real. People died. It's on the news. I know people that were there. They were at the beach. Same comments every time we see one of these false flags. You can go back to Boston Marathon, Sandy Hook, the Orlando nightclub, the Pulse shooting, Charlie Kirk. Why is this being pushed into our face this time? Again, what is the agenda? Radical Islamic terrorism. That's what all of this comes back to, an evil ideology that's spread across the world, and people were not paying attention. This has been going on for a long time, and Trump and the military have been fighting to eradicate this once and for all. This ideology spread throughout the Western world, and again, no one was paying attention before. So now we're at a stage where people need to be shown the truth, and it takes something like a massive event to get people paying attention. It's headline news all across the world. Again, it's all coordinated, fake news for a reason. People don't understand that we're watching a movie, but the movie is showing us all the stuff that has already taken place in this world, and there's still some sick people with twisted thoughts in there. But look at the footage. Look at the hero stopping the guy. Quite easy, actually. What just lets him walk off. Look at the 2 gunmen on the bridge. Looks like something out of a movie. And when the police finally get to them, look how they get taken down. It's pathetic. But yet people believe this one because, no, this time it's in Australia. It's got to be real. But look, again, the agenda. Hanukkah. Jewish celebration. This is the issue at the moment, is everyone's stuck on, the Jews. The real evil ideology is radical Islamic terrorism, jihad. The Muslim Brotherhood's just been designated as a terrorist organisation, so they're showing us again, just another example. And until people understand that we are watching a movie, the movie is showing us what has taken place for many, many years across our world, and it's only at the point where people finally get it, then they understand, okay, they're now showing us because they were getting to work with it, dealing with the problem before, but no one was ready to accept it back then. Now people are paying attention, now people are fed up, but now we're being shown it all, and this is just another example. More people watching, more people paying attention, and again, the agenda being pushed into our faces so everyone can see it. This is just another false flag.
1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call warrior dividend before Christmas, a warrior dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody.
The stage has gone green, which can only mean it's the green Manalishi with the two-pronged crown. Now when the day goes to sleep and the full moon looks,
for duty, patriots. God bless you and welcome to Patriot News Broadcasting. Gosh, the week's almost over and the month is moving right along, isn't it? And when the stage turns green, I like Judas Priest. It's good to see you guys. So, last night was totally interesting, wasn't it? They kind of pulled the old switcheroo on us, you know. Trump had said 1,450,000 service members to get that 1776 check, but let's look at the other stuff going on at the time.
Now, yesterday, there was a bunch of baseless buzz about some sort of, ground invasion of Venezuela. The media just ran with it blindly. But instead, my father delivered a speech laying out his record year of his second term. I mean, the ultimate Trump rope-a-dope. They think he's going to do a State of the Union type address to the nation announcing yet another endless ground war. And instead, he just talks about the successes that they refuse to talk about. We'll get into all.
Well, either way, it sure got a lot of people to pay attention, and he had a lot of things to say. Vince Lehman said President Trump convinced the major networks that he was going to declare war, which is why they all carried his speech last night. Instead, he got an hour of free time to tell America the truth about his successful year. Hello, George said, for anyone who thought our commander-in-chief was going to announce a war tonight because you heard it on the news, time to learn the art of war. Was it SG Anon said, tonight you witnessed the throughput and full circle outcome of a brilliant seek and identify information warfare smokeout operation run directly by POTUS in the White House, presumably for purposes of mapping the saboteurs and leaky sieves that still plague the U.S. federal government and media landscape. Oh yeah, that and a lot of other things, actually. SG also said, and this side of the discussion doesn't even touch on the multidimensional effects the White House op created in foreign spheres of influence, not the least of which being the number of cartel captains, corrupt government officials, and paramilitary warlords in South America who spent the entire day burning resources, manpower, time, and energy preparing for the start of a conflict that didn't happen. I suppose since we're always watching, we got to pay a lot of attention to their movements too, which is probably pretty helpful in the future. Michael Knowles says he pulled a war in Venezuela fake out to make the networks broadcast his first year wins in prime time. So there's all that. Speaking of Venezuela, Maduro was calling on Colombia to join forces with him as things progress, I suppose you would say. Lindell TV put this out. The Department of Justice drops terrorism and trafficking indictments on Venezuela's Tren de Aragua. The DOJ unsealed two major indictments targeting Tren de Aragua. The indictments charge senior leadership with terrorism, international drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, sex slavery, extortion, and torture, all allegedly under the direction of Venezuela's regime and with training by Iran's IRGC. It's an interesting combination. Patrick Byrne told Emerald Robinson, this is no ordinary bust. Tren de Aragua is the front line of World War III, and the DOJ just indicted their invasion force. The second indictment dropped names for top Venezuelan nationals involved in trafficking, terrorism, and laundering. This confirms what insiders have warned. Venezuela and Iran are actively waging a covert war on the United States. A lot of the events happening with all the violence the past weekend and week, Iran's name keeps getting tied back to a lot of it, and we'll see why. Captain Kyle posted this. Y'all remember Cousin Eddie from, the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation? Somebody noticed his latest X account pic and what he's got on his belt buckle there seems like a badge or two. Well, one real badge and a belt buckle badge. What for? I don't know. I don't know exactly. You guys would know better than I would. Has he been martialized? Could be. SG also pointed out that during the speech, President Trump said the last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars. Not that some of that wasn't obvious, but not surprising either. Few other things going on. The deputy secretary posted this. If you are a sponsor of an immigrant who uses welfare or other taxpayer-funded benefits, you are responsible for the cost. And this week, I sent letters to sponsors demanding for repayment. Isn't that interesting? I wouldn't worry about our debt at all with the tariffs. They haven't even begun to kick in. Anna Paulina Luna posted a couple things. I've officially signed over the Russia Kennedy files to the U.S. National Archives, where they will be uploaded alongside the full JFK file collection. This could not have happened without full cooperation from POTUS and the Russian embassy. And she also posted she's in favor of Trump's idea to eliminate income taxes, the IRS to the ERS. I think we all back that up. They've been talking about the Melania movie that comes out January 30th. We looked at the trailer. White House Grandpa wanted to point out the little scene with the red folder, I don't remember seeing it. It went pretty fast. Some people are pointing out other things that I don't necessarily think hold any weight. Someone pointed out that their screen said previously recorded. That's probably just because they were watching it after the fact. But, I watched it live. We watched it live right here, so I didn't give that any credibility. People were talking about time discrepancies, though, on the clock. I wasn't paying enough attention to that as much as what he was saying to notice these discrepancies. So I wondered if any of you guys had seen more about it, because somebody else had wrote about it. I don't know if it was, let's see, it's this 38-minute time difference between Fox and the White House at start time. I don't know about that exactly, but I wanted to point it out at least. This was an interesting post. I think this is MJ Truth. What if China was given the keys? The key word there is given. If the United States currently has the keys, who would give the keys to China? The truth is, China has been a global pawn. Sorry. Do we accurately understand what the New World Order is? Q described the New World Order as a group of families combined. TRI equals NWO and the I. The three triangles. The puppet masters, who Q described as Satan worshippers, hides their true wealth, which is in the trillions. Vladimir Putin said they worship Satan. House of Saud, Rothschild, and Soros. Many governments of the world feed the I via slush funds, war and environmental pacts. These families represent each side of the triangle. Each side of the triangle controls a certain subsect of power brokers. Power brokers are also labeled as the puppets or servants. Rothschilds controlled the church leaders, Pope, the banks, the financial institutions, the worldwide government control. Government controls the people. House of Saud controlled the oil tech, the sex and the child blackmailing. They controlled and assigned United States and United Kingdom politicians, tech companies, primary. Soros controls organizations of people, creates divisions, brainwash management, operator slush funds, personal net worth never reduces, think DOJ, settlements, consumer, Iran, environmental pacts. We're setting up China to be the next dominant superpower until Trump came along, which leaves us with this. What if China, Russia, and others are coordinating with President Trump to eliminate the New World Order? Yeah. Well, that's exactly what's happening. I thought I'd read that. Other stuff happening. People are talking about the Kennedy Center becoming the Trump Kennedy Center, which Don Jr. spoke about too.
There's also some personal news that we may get into, but I'll show that to you in a little bit. And if the regime media wasn't already melting down, imagine for 1 second if they renamed the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. That may actually be happening. Apparently, there was a board of directors votes. Apparently, that seems to be a thing. So that's going to make some serious heads explode.
Well, it was a unanimous board vote, at least, so we'll see how that goes. Russia and Taiwan. The United States announced a major arms package for Taiwan worth over $10 billion, including medium-range missiles, howitzers, and drones, which pissed China off. And they said to stop arming Taiwan.
The Trump administration has announced a major $10 billion arms sale to Taiwan, prompting an angry response from China. Here's what to know. The 8 arms sales agreements cover medium-range missiles, howitzers, and drones. The sale includes 82 high-mobility artillery rocket systems and 420 Army tactical missile systems, similar to what the US had been providing to Ukraine during the Biden administration. The sale was announced by the State Department during Donald Trump's nationally televised address, where Trump made scant mention of policy issues and did not speak about China or Taiwan at all. Taiwan has expressed gratitude towards the US for the arms sale, saying it would help maintain sufficient self-defense capabilities. China's foreign ministry attacked the move, saying it violated diplomatic agreements between the US and China.
以武拒统，大肆挥霍老百姓血汗钱购买武器。
They'll get over it. All the world's a stage, isn't it? So they are trying to link these two incidents together, of course, the Brown University attack and the slaying of the MIT professor. The story really gets more and more interesting, but let me show you what I'm working with here. I want to show you what he had to say today on his show about this. He had a little clip. It's wild.
Now, folks, listen to this MIT professor talking about Earth's magnetic field and magnetic reversals.
And it reverses sometimes, right? And those reversals of the Earth's magnetic field, so, reversal meaning the North Pole becomes the South Pole and vice versa. So those happen. And there's even interesting stories you can tell about how those reversals of the Earth's magnetic field correlate with many ice ages and things like this. Okay.
Folks, that man was just shot dead in his home in one of the safest places in the country. Affluent, low crime. This was a hit. Nobody really knows whether it was his fusion work or him being about to reveal what's happening to this planet right now magnetically. He is gone. Pole shifts and climate catastrophes mashed together. Where have you heard that before? That is a great reason to be harder than a coffin nail. Physical, mental, spiritual, the experience. Our premiere event from 2025 is doing round 2.
So there was that. Gives you a little idea of the kind of things he was working on.
Is there a link between the slaying of a top nuclear scientist and the deadly shooting spree at Brown University? 2 days after the Brown shooting, MIT professor Nuno Loureiro was gunned down at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts.
Reported gunshots. The father was shot multiple times.
With projectiles impacted in the wall.
The 47-year-old was a renowned professor of nuclear science and engineering. And the shooting at Brown, just an hour's drive away, targeted the School of Engineering and Physics. Coincidence? MIT stepped up security today out of an abundance of caution and in light of recent events.
Is there any connection between the shootings?
We had the deadly attack at Brown University, and now we have this.
I spoke with Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University. Is this a crazy coincidence, or could this be some kind of connection?
Right now, I got to tell you, man, they don't have a suspect zeroed in at this point. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is off the table.
The FBI has not established a link between the two cases.
All I've heard is them talking about Iran. It's funny, I seen you talking about flat, round Earth in there again. In case you didn't know, the president was talking about that. He signed an executive order declaring America will return to the moon by 2028, establish parts of a lunar outpost by 2030, and will prepare for a journey to Mars. He also wants to ensure America is ready to replace the International Space Station by 2030. They released that today. I don't know if any of you saw that. We'll get into all that later. You know, whether it's round or flat, you know, get it into all that, it just, you got to admit, whatever NASA thought it was doing was a bunch of bogus bunkum baloney. All right. Moving forward, there's a rumor that Russia is moving 360,000 troops closer to the border, planning, well, whatever comes next, you could say. I suppose, in a way, you really can't blame him with what's been happening and everything they're blaming on him. Take too long to start. Hear what he had to say.
In a 12-minute speech, Vladimir Putin addressed Russia's top military leadership with a message aimed well beyond the room. Speaking at an expanded Defense Ministry board meeting, Putin issued what amount to 5 direct warnings to NATO.
Dear participants of the Collegium, we know that behind the Kyiv regime is the potential of the member countries of the world's largest military political bloc, NATO. Large-scale military assistance is continuously flowing. Advisors, instructors, mercenaries are being sent. Intelligence data is being transmitted.
Putin makes clear that Russia's objectives in Ukraine are fixed, whether achieved through talks or by force.
He knows they're getting ready, so I mean, you cannot really blame him there. While we're on the subject of the area, they were talking about the possibility that Chernobyl's $2 billion protective shield might have been cracked open by a drone.
Chernobyl's $2 billion protective dome has been badly damaged by a drone strike, raising fears of radioactive leaks. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, confirmed the shelter has lost key safety functions and needs urgent repairs. Beneath it lie dangerous nuclear remains from 1986. Experts warn that long-term safety at the site remains at risk during the ongoing conflict.
Has anyone been inside of that thing, I wonder, in any capacity? You find Jimmy Hoffa in there. No. also, Lukashenko of Belarus said that the Russian nuclear-capable missile Orshnik is going to be deployed there. Thought I'd point that out.
Стратегическую защиту обеспечивает и наше военное сотрудничество.
What he said. On top of that, people are criticizing Volodymyr, and not because he dances funny. They do that anyway. They're saying he suggested that once Trump's dead, that it'll be okay to, get Ukraine to be able to join NATO. I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but I'll show you.
The United States have their policy. They don't see us in NATO. For now. Everything in our lives is for now. Maybe the position will change in the future. Maybe somebody will come to realize that strong Ukrainian army strengthens NATO, and not vice versa. Politicians change. Somebody lives, somebody dies. And it's life. The United States have their policy. They don't see us in NATO. For now. Everything in our lives is for now.
So, there's that. I don't think I'd call that anything too particular, but kind of like this story running all day. Oh, they released more Epstein pictures. They released 5 more pictures. This being one of them. I mean, I don't know what that appears to be an adult woman to me. I don't know what they're trying to point out there, but
new photos from House Democrats that put Jeffrey Epstein back in the spotlight on the eve of the deadline Congress set for the Justice Department to release all the Epstein files. We just got 5 more pictures from the Epstein estate, courtesy of Democrats who are eager to keep the story in the headlines. The photos were provided without context. CNN's MJ Lee is here. MJ, can you tell us what these images show?
Yeah, Dana, first of all, I'm really glad that you said that these photographs have been released without any kind of context. We shouldn't be reading into them. What we can do is simply describe what we are seeing here. And certainly we can talk about the political context that is behind all of this as well. The photos, as you said, were just now released by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. They were obtained from the Epstein estate. And committee Democrats also are saying that they were received without the context. So it's not as though they are holding back context that they otherwise have from the estate. So here are the 5 new photographs. First, we have, if you see up there on the screen, a woman's foot with a quote from Lolita. This is a novel about a man's sexual obsession with a 12-year-old girl. You see in the background there the actual book itself. And then we have a photo that appears to be a series of text messages sent by somebody, and again, we don't know who, discussing, quote, sending girls. Let me just read some of these texts. I don't know, try to send someone else. One text says, I have a friend, Scout. She sent me some girls today, but she asks $1,000 per girl. I will send you girls now. Maybe someone will be good for Jay. Don't know who Jay is. Redacted information, I think we are seeing as well about this girl, presumably, including age and height measurements. The next photo is what appears to be a Ukrainian woman's passport. No context there, of course, about who this person might be. And then we have 2 photos, one of philosopher Noam Chomsky on a plane with Epstein, and then Bill Gates posing for a photograph with a woman, but the woman's face has been redacted by the House Democrats. They've been doing this to, they say, to make sure that they are protecting the identities of potential Epstein victims. And I should just be careful to note that Gates has previously said that he regrets meeting with Epstein, whereas Chomsky has previously declined CNN's request for comment. So, Dana, there's nothing here that explicitly...
Totally worth a story, right? Huge story. Israel's former Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, who was planning another run for office, said his Telegram account was hacked. As Israeli media reported the breach was carried out by an Iranian-linked group. There's not really any story on that. There was one about how people believe that Iran is restarting their nuclear program.
Israel's top spy is sending a blunt warning. Iran's nuclear ambitions are far from over. Mossad Chief David Barnea says that the Jewish state must make sure that Tehran never restarts its atomic program 6 months after a dramatic 12-day strike that targeted Iran's key facilities. He is skeptical of diplomacy. He's skeptical of another nuclear deal. He insists that Israel is going to act to keep the Iranians from getting anywhere near a bomb. The stakes are high here, a potential nuclear Iran that could threaten Israel and destabilize the region for years. And joining us now is Andreas Stricker, Non-Proliferation and Biodefense Program Deputy Director from the Foundation for Defense.
So there's that situation. On top of that, I found this particularly interesting. We always kind of wondered why President Trump thought that they should get rid of the warrants or whatever for Benjamin Netanyahu, and it kind of explains a lot here. We're imposing sanctions on ICC judges for investigating Israel. This really is a good explanation, though.
The United States will provide no support and recognition to the International Criminal Court. As far as America is concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority. The ICC claims near universal jurisdiction over the citizens of every country, violating all principles of justice, fairness, and due process. We will never surrender America's sovereignty to an unelected, unaccountable global bureaucracy.
In the U.S. streak to impose sanctions on ICC judges, 2 more names were added. The Trump admin imposed sanctions over their involvement in cases investigating Israeli officials for possible war crimes. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on December 18th that judges Gocha Lord-Kipanidze of Georgia and Erdena Balsurin Damdin of Mongolia face penalties including asset freezes in U.S. jurisdictions and a travel ban. The move follows a series of sanctions by the Trump administration targeting ICC judges and staff for advancing complaints against Israel and the United States. Rubio condemned the ICC for what he called politicized actions targeting Israel, warning that such moves set a dangerous precedent for all nations.
Yeah, and I know you could weigh that both directions, but he makes a good point. Either way, you see it. Weird, though. News is always weird, like this. Japan and their government getting sued over unconstitutional climate inaction. I really didn't know how that made any sense. It really doesn't, but...
Japan faces lawsuit over unconstitutional climate inaction. Tokyo. Hundreds of people across Japan are suing the central government on Thursday, December 18th, to seek damages for what they describe as unconstitutional inaction on climate change. This marks the country's first major civil case of its kind. The landmark suit criticizes Japan's approach to tackling the climate crisis as fundamental.
Is this the first time a government's gotten sued for doing nothing? It's kind of wild, right? We'll move on past that. There seemed to be another situation in Australia today, but they haven't put out much of a story at all on it. It just said Sydney police arrested 5 more terrorists near Bondi Beach. We can show you a little bit of footage. SG and On asked if they would, because they were talking about, going after people, the whole anti-Semitism thing, but, you could say fuck Christianity, whatever, but you can't say fuck Judaism, you might get in trouble, I guess is how that whole thing works. I did find a bit of the story.
7 people were arrested near Bondi Beach over what authorities believe was a second planned terror attack just days after gunmen massacred over a dozen people celebrating Hanukkah. Australian counterterrorism officers rammed 2 vehicles en route to Bondi Beach. Police suspect the 7 arrested of planning an attack targeting funeral proceedings or memorials for those killed in the Sunday mass shooting. The group was reportedly flagged because they were known to authorities. Heavily armed police, dressed in camouflage and tactical gear, intercepted the 2 cars. Footage showed the suspect detained with zip ties and some injured and bleeding. New South Wales police said in a statement that the operation had concluded and the public was safe. The gunmen in Sunday's shooting were confirmed to be affiliated with ISIS.
So there's that little incident today. Like I said, there wasn't really much about it besides that. They were talking about their stay in the Philippines before they came to Australia for the attack.
The president of the Philippines says there's no evidence the alleged Bondi gunmen undertook, quote, terrorist training during their visit to the country last month. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also strongly rejected what he called the misleading characterisation of his country as a militant training hotspot. Australian police have confirmed the pair did travel to the Philippines, but say the purpose of their trip is being investigated.
A little over 2 weeks before carrying out the horrors on the Hanukkah event, Sajid and Naveed Akram spent almost a month in the Philippines. Immigration records show the pair travelled from Sydney to Manila and then Davao City, arriving on November 1 aboard a Philippine Airlines flight. Davao in the southern Philippines is located around 200 kilometres by road from known hotspots for groups with IS links and other militant organisations.
So the southern Philippines has had a sort of variation of a jihadist insurgency running for the best part of 3 decades, since at least the 90s.
There are reports the pair underwent military-style training in the southern Philippines, possibly near the city of Marawi. It's a place that attracted global attention in 2017 when it was seized by IS-inspired militants for 5 months, with the aim of making Marawi the capital for IS.
I mean, what do you think? I don't know if it really makes any sense at this time, because I don't know much about the Philippines either, so you guys have some interesting conversations in the chat. Remember, we took the poll. The group's about half and half here, remember? The United States is accusing South Africa of harassing officials down there working with Afrikaners.
In breaking news, the ongoing tensions between South Africa and the US have now surged to boiling point. Washington has threatened consequences over what it deems as slights against its officials. It's accusing Pretoria of blocking its officials from rendering aid to Afrikaners. The US says, quote, it will not tolerate such behavior. The row follows a raid on a non-governmental US refugee processing center in Johannesburg earlier this week. 7 Kenyans have since been deported for working at the center illegally. They did not have work permits.
So, yeah, we're going to have some issues there, it seems like, in South Africa. I just have to watch how that progresses. Of course, you saw this in the intro and have probably heard about it by now. The passing of the bill to end transgender surgeries for minors. Thank God.
Welcome back. Right now, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Medicare and Medicaid Administrator Dr. Oz are announcing a new ban on gender-affirming care for transgender teens and children. Let's listen in.
On the list, Chairman of the Federal Trade Commission, Andrew Ferguson, Senator Bill Cassidy, Senator Marsha Blackburn, Senator Roger Marshall, Senator James Lankford, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, Congressman John Joyce, Congresswoman Diana Harshberger, Congressman Bob Onder, Congressman Robert Adderholt, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, Congressman Tim Walberg, Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill, Administrator Mehmet Oz, Director Jay Bhattacharya, Commissioner Marty McCary, and Admiral Brian Christine. And a special thanks to...
I know you guys seen that in the intro. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing again, but you get the idea. Thank God that happened. Finally, I mean, we've been seeing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. busy as it is, but really starting to see the whole of what he's going to do kick in. He's going to use his time wisely. So the plane crash that happened today started kind of like this. There were reports, some videos from people at random. Even the Associated Press at one point didn't know who had crashed and were just releasing footage. After a little bit, people learned more about it. I was watching because, of course, plane crashes are always interesting. Didn't know that it was NASCAR legend Greg Biffle, his wife, and his 2 children on the plane. So I'll show you the story.
Ties in the 60s. Okay, Amy, thank you so much. Breaking news right now. Former NASCAR driver Greg Biffle, his wife, and 2 kids have died in a plane crash. It happened in Statesville. The Federal Aviation Administration confirmed that his Cessna C-550 crashed while landing at the Statesville Regional Airport before 10:30 this morning. That airport does provide corporate aviation facilities for...
It was a windy day. They had taken off and had problems, and they were circling back to the airport when they crashed. So I don't know what, I think there was a mechanical issue with the plane before they had gotten very far away. I don't know anything about the guy, so I don't really even know what to say about the crash, but it's appears to be a sad situation. It wasn't the only plane crash type incident today. This one in Van Nuys, a plane was stolen from a flight school and then crashed into a hangar.
Right now, an exclusive from NBC4 investigates. A small plane was stolen from LA Flight Academy in Van Nuys. You're looking at a live picture right now from News Chopper 4. The person trying to fly that plane crashed. You can see it right there. The nose of that aircraft is right through the side of one of the hangars. So we do know that the FBI and LAX police, they're investigating. We're still working to learn more details about when this happened, and also if anyone is in custody or injured. We will bring you breaking updates as soon as we get them.
They didn't even get off the ground. They probably should have stayed in flight school a little longer before they tried to steal the plane or whatever the hell they were doing. Well, Trump was speaking last night. They announced another narco boat boom, I guess you could say. 4 drug cartel members were killed this time, bringing the total up to 99.
U.S. military has announced another strike on a suspected drug boat. According to the U.S. Southern Command, intelligence confirms the vessel was engaged in narco trafficking operations and on a known trafficking route in the Eastern Pacific. That attack on Wednesday was described as a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel operated by a designated terrorist organization. Video released by Southern Command showed that boat being hit and then erupting in flames and plumes of smoke there.
You can actually find quite a few videos on YouTube about how they approach these situations out on the ocean. If we're flat Earth, do you think, how do the poles flip? How's that work? I'm just kidding. The farmers in Brussels sure know how to clash, and this ought to tell you something. Don't mess with the farmers. You don't mess with the farmers. I mean, damn, right? SGN shared this about Dan Bongino leaving. Remember when he announced earlier this year that after becoming the deputy director at the FBI that he saw things that shook him to his core? I don't know, I do remember that, but yeah. Trump media is merging with nuclear fusion firm in a $6 billion deal.
Trump media agreed to merge with fusion energy company TAE Technologies in a deal valued at more than $6 billion, the two companies announced on Thursday, claiming the merger will create the world's first publicly traded nuclear fusion company. Trump Media and TAE, a nuclear fusion company, announced an all-stock merger where current shareholders of each company will own about 50% of the new entity. After the 2026 merger, the combined company plans to build the, quote, world's first utility-scale fusion power plant, generating 50 megawatts with future plans for 350 to 500 megawatt plants. Trump Media will give TAE up to $200 million cash upon signing and an additional $100 million when the S-4 merger document is filed.
Interesting. Seems like an unlikely duo, though. And military schools are banning cell phones in classrooms, apparently.
Hello, Dimsdale. I'm Chet Ubecho with today's editorial, which technically makes it a Chetatorial. A provision in the $900 billion National Defense Authorization Act will ban smartphone use during the school day for K to 12 students attending Department of Defense education activity schools on U.S. military bases. The bipartisan measure, sponsored by Senator Jim Banks and Senator Elissa Slotkin, aims to reduce distractions, improve learning outcomes, and support military family retention. It affects more than 65,000 students across 161 schools in the U.S., overseas, and U.S. territories.
If all news was like that, would you guys watch it? A little cartoon guy doing it for you. In Tennessee, the governor pardoned country star Jelly Roll, who I thought was a heavy metal star, frankly.
Also today, Tennessee's governor pardoned country music star Jelly Roll. He is a Nashville native who, for years, has spoken about his criminal past and his path forward, finding redemption. Governor Bill Lee issued the pardon for the 41-year-old musician whose legal name is Jason DeFord. This is video from November of last year. That's when Jelly Roll visited and spoke with juveniles at the Indiana Department of Corrections. The rapper turned country singer, says today's move will make it easier for him to travel internationally to perform and share his message. Jelly Roll often visits jails and rehab centers before performing concerts. Really cool to see he'll be able to continue his work.
I see why he wanted to pardon. Makes sense. Christian songwriter now. Huh. Wasn't he the Insane Clown Posse or something like that? Maybe? I don't remember. And lawmakers clash in a firestorm over corruption in Albania. And man, I wish we did it this way.
Deputetët zënë vëndë ndërprisni veprimet e dhunshme të palejuara nga rregullorja.
Okay, who brought the road flare? Got a couple WTF videos for you guys before we move forward. I think that's pretty much all the news. Wanted to show you guys a couple of odd videos I came across. Starting with this one. This one doesn't have any sound though. I'm sure some of you guys have seen some of these pictures. It does kind of seem like they recycled their actors, doesn't it? You would think they would get new actors. Wonder if these guys are paid well. I kind of bet they are. David Wheeler. I remember that guy. Anyway, that was one video I wanted to show you. I've seen this one today. Sort of feels ridiculous almost, but I've actually heard people say that before. I want to show you one more here. I think this is the right video. Let's find out. You can tell me what's wrong with this video, if it's the right video.
It's official, folks. I'm gonna marry a Chinese woman. Why's that? Well, that's because the Chinese understand something.
Oh, no, that's not the right video. Hang on. Let me see if I still have it. I don't know if I still have it or not.
It looks like you're in a studio, maybe in Omaha, Nebraska or something. The shot is so clear. Is this a hoax? Are you really in space still?
See the hair? See the hair?
Oh yeah, we see your hair,
either,
and
but
we can totally see the hairspray that is quite obviously in your hair.
what it was a guy watching a video of somebody working on a space station, and outside of the space station, and they're like, that effect when you roll down your car window when you're driving, you stick your hand out. Why is that not happening to this guy when he's moving thousands of miles an hour? Duh, Some of it's a little duh. People go a little too duh. Anyway, all that being said, yeah, I got to admit that the NASA thing, though, it is pretty ridiculous, though. So you have to ask why, at the very least, they're so retarded, I guess. I want to take you through these real quick before we move on. Must be done right. It must be done according to the rule of law. It must carry weight. It must be proven in the court of law. There can be no mistakes. Good things sometimes take time. Attempts to slow and block the inevitable justice will fail. Democrats' election interference, 2016. Clinton Hussein illegal FISA. The Dems' election interference in 2018. Mueller, the Dems' election interference in 2020. Impeachment, projection. These people are sick. We, the people, are the cure. Same thing. The Mueller report. Yeah. What happens when 90% of the media is controlled and owned by 6 corporations? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy? What happens when the news simply becomes an extension of a political party? Fact becomes fiction, and fiction becomes fact. When does news become propaganda? Identity creation. How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? The majority of people are more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name. Do people tend to follow the majority mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned? Mainstream is used for a reason, to dominate trend and opinion. If majority of people believe X, then X must be validated and true. But do the mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords and catchphrases? Coordinated by who? An outside entity providing instructions? Do they count on the fact that the people are more prone to believe something have heard over and over again by different trusted sources? The echo chamber tactics provide validation and credibility to the topic being discussed. Threat to intellectual freedom. Would control of these institutions allow for the mass control of a population viewpoint regarding a desired topic? Read again and digest. The control of these institutions allow for the mass control of a population regarding a desired topic. Logical thinking. I feel like we read this before not too long ago. All right, what do we got? Timing of impeachment vote. Still tracking resignations. DARPA, Facebook. Durham discoveries can lead to early retirement. Think FBI departures. Think Department of Justice departures. Clock started. 10 days. That's interesting. Given Patriot Princess's video in the intro, I'm surprised she didn't mention Q Post 370. Clock started 10 days. Weird. Not quite on task for when she was thinking, but they derailed as punishment for alt extraction. Wonder which pawn is off the table, or was it something higher? A bishop, a colt. We would not intentionally harm a person in the pursuit of a target. This was retaliatory. Shall we play a game? Map is critical to understand. Future unlocks past. News unlocks the map. Find the markers. 10 and 10. 12-7 to 12-17. Concourse F. Terminal 5. Private operated plane. Extraction known. Darkness. Learn double meanings. Shut down. Special place. Wire drops highlighted by POTUS shortly thereafter. Coincidence or message? Great Awakening. POTUS today. Unlock. Class op. Future. How about a nice game of chess? Splash. Fox 3. Huh. Okay. That is your deltas for today. Mr. Juan is on live right now. I thought you guys might want to jump over and see what they're discussing. And then we can go from there and see what else is on.
Radical jihadists are not done. Iran promises death to America. They've built sleeper terror cells in the U.S. They support terror groups out to destroy Israel, including Hamas.
Michael Jacobs, the one that posted the suspicious observers video about the pole flip, is on this morning.
The only democracy in the Middle East that supports religious freedom is Israel. Jihadists are not standing for freedom. Iran promises death to America. They've built sleeper terror cells in the U.S. They support terror groups out to
see what they're saying.
What apples do to our body.
Trail mix.
What kind of apple is that?
One of the worst. It's not a nut at all. Raisins.
Deadly missiles flying just like you had in Hawaii, most likely. Big, right? Big, right? Yeah. So he threw big, right?
I think we can start from the beginning. Should be able to start from the beginning. Yeah,
big, right? Yeah. So he throws it out. The loadmaster's saying, no. They leave a duffel bag on the tarmac. He said, I can't take this back. I don't have authority. I'm supposed to leave it off. You guys are supposed to take so many. Those guys in that other SUV should have taken the other duffel bag. And so the plane's rolling down the runway. The guy gets in it. They're closing up the ramp. And the guys in the truck drive off. There's $5 million in a duffel bag sitting in the middle of the runway.
Damn.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, that's, that is what's worth more, my life, or that stupid duffel bag with $5 million of fiat cash, right? And, but they'll use that money to buy friends. And that 50 million, if there's one of the generals, there's one of the politicians close to Maduro, or, the accountant, whoever decides they want to live comfortably somewhere, they can give that extra piece of information that allows them to be taken safely, or some combination of the guys, which is more likely. We all get 5 million each. Here's Maduro, and we'll help you with resettling the country, or we'll leave the country. Can you send a jet to pick us up right now? And I got the wife and kids. That's what'll happen. They'll take the deal. And if they don't, there'll be a hot flash somewhere, and that'll be the end of Maduro. He can go comfortably, see justice here, or see justice in the next world, and that's going to be, you're just taking it to a higher court, enjoy the show.
Interesting. Yeah. So, what do you think the time frame for it is? Is it very close?
It's very, very close. So, dealing with the look, Trump has been holding on the Tina situation, my opinion, for that emergency, national security emergency order. Then he won't probably do it at the exact same time. It'll be probably 24 to 48 hours later that he will declare or issue the executive order related to it, because he wants to let the press assemble, let the diners assemble. And then when he signs the executive order concerning how the 2026 election is going to be done, whether it's a couple of days or a week or two later, I think it'll be a couple of days, that sets the tone for everything else, because what is first, you need to have the discussion. Why a national emergency? Well, the elections were frauded. 2020, it's not over yet. And the Matador, in the last 5 minutes of round 3, the Megador shows up. It's going to be epic. I mean, in a bullfight, you have to tire the bull out in order to get the head dropped down. See, when the head's down like this, what happens is it splits the shoulder blades out. They get wider. And you can't kill the bull with the sword through the chest. You can't get it from the neck. You weaken the bull, you weaken the shoulders in a bullfight by the toreadors get in there and they do things to weaken the bull in the shoulder area. Then as the head gets down, which is the most dangerous part of the bullfight, when the head's down, that's where you find all these bullfighters end up getting killed. It's not early when the head's high and they're prancing around and have a lot of energy to charge. As they get weaker and more tired, the head gets down. And then they just are so tired, they just move the head back and forth and catch a bullfighter with a horn. You'll see them get flipped in the air and like that. And they can literally, because of right where they're at, they'll get a femoral artery oftentimes, and the bullfighter's dead in less than a minute. So this is the most dangerous part of the bullfight, because you have to get close enough to the bull to bring the sword in right between the shoulder blades straight to the heart. And when you do that, then you get a clean, quick kill. And but as the bullfight goes on, bulls aren't marathon runners. And so they get tired and tired. A bull sometimes just lay down in front's haunches and just lay down. They're so exhausted. So the bullfighter, a lot of times they'll get down on one knee, both knees, bait the bull to come get them, to do one more charge. And when they do that and the head's down because it's so exhausted, that's when the bullfighter can kill the bull. And so that's the whole thing about a bullfight. Trump is getting the timing precisely right. The most important thing he'll do in public office is this emergency order regarding elections. It's the most important thing, but the timing, is so crucial. And once you go to that national emergency related to elections, and then you do the executive order concerning all the criteria, how the election is going to have to be done, have to start from scratch on the voter rolls. You have to go re-register to vote, no existing voter rolls used, and you have to do it with government-issued ID. And then you show where you live, verify that, and sign on the dotted line under penalty of perjury that the information you're giving is true. And the person that receives countersigns it is the any of the clerks within a county vote registration system, and they're all notaries. So they notarize your signature on your voter registration card. Now they can even do that on the day of the election, but there's not going to be any mail-in ballots except in extremely limited extreme situations and for military. No votes counted late that come in after election day. And then one day vote. Trump has said maybe 2 days. We'll see how he does that. I think it's going to be a 1 day vote. Day vote counted where cast, and then how he does that. 1 day vote counted where cast. Precincts of 1,500 or less, no drop boxes. And the counted word casting is important because they're not trying to transport in the trunk of a police car, supposedly a magic act, it's safe, whatever. No, you're going to have a real vote. The real people are going to show up, and when that happens, the country's going to go deep red. Okay, and you've just killed all the bullshit related to elections. And so, forget the bullshit. Just kill the bull, and that's what Trump's going to do. He's going to kill the bullshit maker, and that's what they can't stand. It's the most important thing he'll do in public office. So he'll sign the national election emergency, just like he did the COVID emergency. Then there will be steps that follow, such as the executive order concerning how the votes run, other executive orders and executive actions related to Venezuela, Serbia, other locations. And then, how many times have you and I got beaten up to the moon? I haven't seen anybody getting arrested yet. Nobody's going to Gitmo. Nothing's happening. Well, when you do it in the context of this national election emergency, now you can go out and start picking people up and not go through normal law enforcement operations of Justice Department, etc., where there has been treasonous, traitorous activity related to election fraud and people being in office under fraudulent circumstances through frauded elections. If Trump says he's 46, oh well, if you're 46, then who screwed with things to make it so somebody else got there that wasn't the right person? Who all was in on that? They got a lot of space over at Gitmo. When they run out of space there, you got a lot of space over at Guam. It's even bigger. Oh my gosh, what they've been doing at Guam. Oh man, you have no idea. And then you got Diego Garcia. You got a couple other spots around the place. Wow. If we're really pissed with somebody, we won't send them to Antarctica. That'd be paradise. But we got places in Arctic locations that will, we might even do a little bit of jet fuel therapy, with a little diesel thrown in and around. We'll rotate them around once in a while if we feel like it. See how that feels. So it's going to be pretty amazing. And those arrests will follow within the context of this national emergency. And then finally, the last part of this that everybody needs to be aware of. The real fight domestically is you have a whole bunch of players in public office in certain agencies who their allegiance isn't specifically to that agency or even to the United States government as such. They're in a continuity in government operations, senior executive service, and they're the shadow government. Every time Cheney had a fake heart attack, and then they ask him a question. Well, I was actually running the shadow government. He's laughing about it, but he's actually serious. Helping do stuff over at SCS. You have senators, congressmen, judges, all on the payroll of senior executive service. Continuity in government operation, as though they supposedly are there to maintain peace and order and blah 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 between elected administrations. Well, they're acting like because Trump was supposedly put in office by the Russians, that they're totally justified in defying anything he says and doing it. Well, it's projection. It's the exact opposite.
Wow.
So
That's how they did that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they've been playing this. This goes back to,
that's how they took out JFK, because he was talking to the Russians.
That's right, and build the tunnel up there in Alaska, okay, and or the bridge or whatever you want to call it. Would have been a tunnel, but the short version too on that is this: when Frank Church was a congressman from Idaho. And he led a group that wanted to bring to light some of the misdeeds that were going on with the CIA and things that were happening around Nixon. And what the CIA was doing, trying to start and execute a war, for example, in Indonesia. The allegations at the time that were being fought, they were going from South America and moving over to Indonesia, and they never fully got to Indonesia because it was too fresh with Vietnam and like that. But CIA, what Obama's mama was doing, Stanley Ann Dunham, she was helping to document the population, the bloodlines, the families, and their political ties across Indonesia in the mid-'60s. And then they had this huge blow-up in Indonesia. And depending on which historian you're reading, between 1 and 5 million people were killed across Indonesia when you switch from Suharto to Sukarno, the two presidents. And Suharto said at a certain moment that Sabud, a religious organization, which Obama's mama belonged to, was actually a CIA front. And they were trying to remove him from the presidency, covertly affect the elections, and then put Sukarno into office. And of course, that's what did happen, but it cost, depending on who you talk to, 1 to 5 million people dead to get that done. And, again, election fraud going all the way back then, with CIA involved in other countries, all the banana republics across South America. Well, Frank Church had the church committee hearings in Washington, D.C., and that's when all the family jewels were exposed over at CIA and stuff that they'd been involved in, all the mischief they were involved in. And so with that in mind, the hearings were closed soon enough. We didn't even get into the worst stuff. That's when we heard about drug testing on civilians and, LSD and things like that to see what would happen with individuals and small populations. There's stuff that has still not been brought forward. I was in a meeting, dinner in 75. And one of the people present was a person that was involved in the Disneyland stuff and Club 33. And he was describing a situation then where they had drugged half the people at this dinner, and the other half were there watching how people acted and reacted to note it. And I apologize. I got a call coming in. Let me just send this to... And I apologize on that. Anyway, he was describing how they did a whole group with an LA thing. And that one of the women had a horrible reaction. She wasn't as big as a lot of the other people. She was very slight, very small. And the dose appeared to have been higher than she got. And, nearly killed her. And she was on a trip for days before she finally came back to her senses. That was all done by CIA. There's lots of stuff we still haven't heard. And of course, that's part of the stuff with the Snowden stuff more recently. And even stuff going into WikiLeaks like that. So we have a lot of disclosures yet ahead of us. But in the Carter administration, in the aftermath of the Church Committee hearings, George Bush Sr. was still head of the CIA there, a businessman. He'd been over in China as our business liaison because we didn't have an ambassador to China under Nixon. He comes back and, that's fantastic. I just got a piece of very important news that I can't tell you. So then as we came out of the Church Committee hearings, George Bush is director of CIA. He's the one that leads the way to get 2 executive orders that protect intelligence covert operations going out in the future. And the first one was the creation of the Inspector General's office, which controls the flow of money, and turns on the spigot or turns off the spigot at all these various government agencies. And that's, it's done by executive order, create this Inspector General's office, supposedly control the intelligence and military industrial complex and all that. Then the second thing is they create the Senior Executive Service, which is about continuity in government. And of course, the question being, Nixon, when he was having to be taken out of office, and General Haig, remember, I'm in charge here. Things like that, Kennedy assassination, whatever, different things. Who's actually running things in some type of a crisis event for attack? And so Senior Executive Service was to build out an infrastructure in the background that if something horrid happened or between elections, as one group is going out and another group's coming in, they'd maintain continuity in government between these elected civilian operations. And Senior Executive Service has completely gone off the rails. Unknown budget. They can pay anybody any amount of money they want. They manage the creation of Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg's a DARPA operation, LifeLog. And he was handed on a silver platter. He didn't create Facebook. And by the way, Bitcoin is a creation of DARPA. When there was so much money in Facebook, this black bag operation with this cheesy player, the director, owner, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, Zuckerberg's wife, Chinese, is even wealthier than he is. Think about that for a minute. But they had to bleed some of the money out of Facebook somewhere. So they had this supposed trial. Remember how Zuckerberg was like not even paying attention. He's drawing, scribbling, care less. Why? Because he knew it was all put on. The Winklevoss brothers, who supposedly also invented Facebook, look, if Zuckerberg didn't invent it, it was DARPA. The Winklevoss twins couldn't have invented it. And so what's going on here? Well, they needed money for their Bitcoin mining operations, so they got a payoff from Facebook, all legit. Then they go up to George Washington, buy a bunch of operations, a DOD thing, and allegedly are doing mining, getting paid to mine. And by the way, for this backup power supply system for the Grand Coulee Dam system. The short version of all of that is that these operations, Inspector General's office and Senior Executive Service, were funding and channeling money, turning the spigot on and off for these operations that were really the hijacking of the helm of the ship of state of America. And they have become so powerful that the only way to stop them, as I've told your audience before, but it bears repeating right now, there will be a face-off, and there will be allegedly missiles flying, just like you had in Hawaii, most likely, where the computer systems had to scram, and then on an emergency basis, over an hour, twice, downloaded from all the federal and military computers, everything that they had, including during that hour, back to a mainland location within the NORAD defense system, and including all of the access codes, including for special access projects, as though the people involved may have died. So then you got totally transparent back at NORAD, everything going on. Doesn't matter what your secret code is that you put in, we get it all. That, I believe, is what happens on the mainland and again out in the islands and other locations around the world in some kind of a missile standoff, Cuban Missile type crisis, where it appears missiles are in the air. And all those systems have to scram. And when they do, it doesn't matter what they've tried to do in the interim. The codes were locked. When Trump sealed up Cheyenne Mountain, which is the core of our missile defense system, everybody in there has a Q clearance. They locked all of those systems in a continuity of government operation to the NORAD side of continuity in government, which goes back to 54 and the beginning of the nuclear age, versus SES, which happened under Carter with the Inspector Generals and the SES 78 and 79, those two executive orders that hijacked control of the country. Carter was really only a tiny bit better than Biden in that he was a useful tool for these globalista to put themselves into the right position. And then you move forward in time. Who managed the Oklahoma city building? I think it'll be very readily found to have been SES. Even this fraud.
You had mentioned Bill Barr.
Yeah, you know,
some other stuff about Bill Barr where they're basically they're already getting everything ready to, like, you know, prosecute President Trump before the last election fraud. They're already getting it ready. Wow, he's going to really be held accountable, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Barr is within that circle of SIGI, you know, continuity in government, their council and like that. They go by SIGI. And, you know, yeah, let's go smoke that SIGI. Those people, I mean, I will tell you, those people that have hijacked control of the country through various frauds and manipulations, including cooperating with the fraud of the 2020 election and the Russia stuff. They are going to have a rough hair day now for the rest of their lives. Once this executive order is signed, things will change. And, you know, Obama's over there in England kissing up to those guys. By the way, the British Commonwealth side of this continuity and government operation, where these globalists are coordinating their actions, that's Serco. Serco is the equivalent of RSES and controlling, you know, the intelligence agencies, everything else. And by the way, you know, you probably remember this. A lot of us were like, what in the world are they talking about? This is insane. When they were talking about merging all the intelligence gathering operations under one roof, which is what happened after 9/11, another SES covered operation. Why? Because now you centralized everything. It was easier to control stuff, right? So send Matt a note. I'll be there in 5 minutes because they have opening. If you would, please. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that's going to come out. And think about that under the auspices of continuity in government. 9/11 happened. The Paradise and Palisades fires, Maui, and 100 other fires that you haven't heard the name of, that were where very advanced military weapons were used, not just against Americans, but places all over the world for this club's purposes, to steal all the money from everybody, everywhere, all the time. This is a much bigger battle, and it's my contention that the most important first real shot across the bow that's going to hit armor, go through a deck plate, in at the waterline, is what Trump's about to do with this emergency executive order. Now, we've been lobbing stuff across the decks. We've been, you know, making big, loud noises and all that. This is the one that hits them in really core places. If you get an honest election, they're toast.
Oh, yeah.
You have honest paper ballots, no electronics. Trump is not going to have one machine in this. In fact, one of the big things that we've heard for months, and I actually dealt with one of the groups directly personally and asked for a very specific thing and got what they just damn well wanted to do, which wasn't where we're going. Hand count, paper ballot, and all the problems with the machines. And they came back and says, well, all the machines that are currently there are bad, and there's nothing else out there, but we came up with one. So we've got a machine that we want to use. Trump, they were opportunistic, was Trump's exact words. They wanted to do it their way, and they're going to go make a buck, feather their nest through retirement, and manage this whole thing. No, just like France. Hand count, paper ballot, counted where cast, 1 day vote. Okay? It's about to happen. And that guy right there is about to bring you back to honest elections in America. And once we get ours under control, the rest of the world, it's going to be unbelievable. So anyway, I've got another show I've got to do with my chief of staff here, Matt Meck. And, he's doing a fantastic job too. In fact, if you wanted to have him on your show, you might want to ask him about his history back in the Fast and Furious stuff, which is also going to be part of this as we get into going after election integrity and the
What happened? Did we freeze up? Is it over? I guess it's over. I had to step out for a second, so sorry about that. Whew. Well, it's windy, guys. Did you enjoy the episode with Mr. Jaco and Mr. Juan? Yeah, let's see what else is going on. If anybody else is on tonight. Wouldn't be so cold out if it weren't for that damn wind. More Juan. Juan is everywhere. Excuse my sniffles. Let me dig a little deeper here. Sometimes you just gotta dig a little deep. Dig a little deep. Okay. There's that. All right. I found something. I haven't heard from SGN in a long time. Sorry, guys. Sniffle you to death. Let's check out this episode with SGN.
Watch what apples do to our body.
Trail mix.
First ingredient, peanuts. One of the worst. It's not a nut at all.
If
Raisins,
you would
they're
like.
just for sure.
Love
If
watching
this is you
SGN.
at 39, but this is the goal, then you got to stop waiting.
Thank you so much for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. Today, we're diving into one of the most critical conversations, I believe, of our time. We're living in an era where economics, geopolitical arena, the currency, all powers are like colliding together. And most people feel that something is changing. They feel that there's a shift yet, but they can't put their finger on it. They don't know what is going on. Well, with us today is my dear brother, SGN, and he's been tracking this whole global movement for some time, as well as the financial pressures, the geoeconomic strategy, and really has, I think, a lens on what's going on. So I tell you, get all your friends aboard here. Text them right now. We are live, so tell them, hey, hop on. You're going to learn. You've been asking me questions, so we're going to get those questions answered. And I believe that your peeps and all those listening, you'll be able to finally connect the dots on what's going on. So without further ado, SG, we are just so blessed to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me here, Francine. It's good to be back.
Yeah, so much going on. I mean, we just had the President Trump give his address last night. I think a lot of people were expecting maybe a lot more than what they heard, and assure that the Democratic arena really thought that he was going to go into Venezuela and all that other stuff. But wow, what was your perspective of the address last night?
I really enjoyed the president's speech last night, as a matter of fact. And something that I think is very fascinating was the amount of build up and lead up to it. Yet again, President Trump made a big deal about this on his own Truth Social profile about 24 hours or so, a little bit more than 24 hours prior. We saw a significant amount of information ecosystems and sub-ecosystems immediately run with what was going to be in the address and what probably would be in the address, et cetera. But fundamentally, as we look at what actually came out with it, it was a year in review, but it had a couple of really notable points to talk about. And so I want to talk about the direct points that were made in the address, and then I want to talk about the indirect effect that comes from the type of address that was given, and in particular, the bluff and the bluster and the sort of pomp and circumstance that was put on in the lead up to it. So in the address, we had President Trump talking about the significance of the entirety of this year and how he inherited a mess. And that's the very first thing that he says coming out into the speech. I inherited a mess, but we're going to fix it. And he goes on and talks about these last 11 months, all the different things that they've been able to accomplish and do, all these different economic numbers, a lot of victories, a lot of victory laps taken by the president with respect to his rhetoric. But then he doubled down a little bit on the greatness of the military and how the military is sometimes not so appreciated, I think was the terminology used, or sometimes underappreciated. And he talked about the warrior's dividend to be paid out by the end of the year, $1,776. It's very interesting that we should pick that timeline for that by the end of the year. And the number itself is obviously self-explanatory symbolically. Even your regular, viewer and onlooker out there that doesn't follow things like broader online conspiracies will understand the significance of choosing that dollar amount to give bonuses to U.S. military soldiers. And these are going to come to all of the soldiers across the entirety of the personnel, including National Guard, Army, and all of those enlisted ranks, right? What we would call the grunts, the soldiers that really do the work of prosecuting the war. They carry out the orders of the officers appointed before them or over and above them. And so that struck me very interesting, Francine, as a tell-all, in the sense that President Trump is appealing to the broadest base of the U.S. military in the way that makes the most sense. In other words, he's appealing to the 21-year-old sergeant or the 24-year-old staff sergeant with a family at home, people to provide for. He's appealing to the non-commissioned officers in the enlisted ranks who understand financial pressure, who know what it's like to have been in the military pay scale and in the military pay grade and suffering just like the rest of America, because, of course, the America-hating left has never sought to, do anything positive for the military or any American-focused interest. That's sort of the baseline of that ideology. And so that's a very significant tell-all, if you will, or sort of suggestion, if you will, on that issue, because we've got this ratcheting tension rising across the entirety of the nation with respect to metros and the infiltration and permeation of an invasive force that came in not over just the last 4 years, but really over the last 40 years. And that takes me to my second direct point that I want to make that I took away from this speech. President Trump talked for a significant number of minutes relative to the overall length of the speech about the border catastrophe and why borders are so important. Yet again, talking about the out of control immigration, the out of control landscape inside the United States, and blaming all of the major core issues that people are fielding day to day with respect to safety in their communities, economic pressure, demand for healthcare, demand for tax relief, all of these sorts of things being fueled and prevented, in other words, being obstructed by this broad issue of federal immigration, and how the Biden administration facilitated, along with their allies in Congress, and these are words he used in the speech, an invasion of the United States. So what we've got going on here, in my opinion, is the preparation for the narrative to really escalate throughout the Christmas holiday and then into New Year 2026. 2026 is prophesied to be a significant year. It's prophesied actually by Edgar Casey to be a year of identity decision-making with respect to the American people and the American population. The peoples of the United States will have to decide sometime next year and into 2027 what kind of country they want to have and to leave to their children. That implies that significant events have to happen along in this journey. And President Trump's address, which could be sort of taken away as like a Christmas address or an end-of-year check-in address, for lack of a better term, I think that sort of tells us some of what that expectation and some of what that momentum is going to be about. We have to undo the damage that has been done to this country. And while the Biden administration was used as the psychological operation needed for everyone to understand that the country had been assaulted, that the country had been damaged and overthrown from the inside, it was far from the first time that had happened. This is an infestation that goes back a number of decades, and there's a lot of rot to pull out of this system. And I submit to you, Francine, it's rot that we cannot pull out by our standard ordinary machinations and our usual protocols and methods in one 4-year presidency.
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, this military operation is far from over.
I would suggest that it's really ratcheting up yet again. This is a ratcheting up phase. And this takes me to the indirect point that I wanted to make about the speech from yesterday. POTUS's address was absolutely a smokeout operation. We saw all sorts of information funnels jumping to release their version of what was going to happen with the address. We saw a couple of very well-known broadcasters actually discussing that they had congressional or government sources that were hinting at specific outcomes or topics that would be in those addresses. And of course, none of those topics or outcomes, specifically Venezuela, but a couple others too, including expanded conflict in the Middle East, none of those were discussed or even referenced at all whatsoever in that presidential address to the nation. What that tells me is that you had some leakers or you had some fabricators or some saboteurs in the ranks that are now outing themselves, that are now showing themselves for who they are, and their connectivity is now being interpreted by those journalistic or sort of journalistic adjacent sources that published some of that information, because those individuals oftentimes are just useful idiots being deceived in the wheel, not actually the planners carrying out and executing the dark agenda.
That's so good, because unfortunately what we've been seeing in the past 10 months or so, 11 months, are a lot of the influencers that are patriots kind of turning tides here, which is very sad and makes me think that, they've had an agenda all along.
Well, it's very interesting. I think that at the end of the day, we have to go back to the good book and really apply some of the good book's wisdom in a literal fashion. The love of money, in other words, the adoration of money and the pursuit of financial gain at the expense and to any extent.
For anyone experiencing blurry vision and concerns about deteriorating sight, do not have another oatmeal before you see this.
When your vision starts to blur or fade, most people think the obvious solution is glasses, reading glasses, bifocals, stronger prescriptions every year. I was one of them. But here's the part no optometrist ever tells you. Glasses don't fix your vision. Turns out they just help you cope while your eyes keep getting worse. And that's exactly what was happening to me. I was squinting at street signs, struggling to see while driving at night, and dreading every optometrist visit. Because I already knew he'd say I was just getting older and needed a stronger prescription. I almost spent $800 on a new pair of lenses. Then something unexpected happened. A friend told me about Dr. Sidney Bush, whose discovery has helped people over 40 actually restore their eyesight, instead of just masking the symptoms with stronger lenses. He explained something I'd never heard before, that most vision problems aren't about genes, age, or screen time. Instead, it comes from poor blood flow behind the eyes, which starves the retina of oxygen. And turns out, there are natural ways to support clearer vision without relying on stronger glasses. That's when I discovered his 7-second at-home fix you can do just before bed. This simple ritual helps flush out microscopic blocks and restore blood flow to the retina, so your eyes can absorb oxygen again and restore crisp, clear vision. By week 2, I noticed I wasn't reaching for my reader
necessary to include the expense of others. It is the root of all evil in the world. And so when we look at individuals out there that have come into the information space, have come into the political scene, have emerged as heavy hitters in the nonprofit space, trying to do actual real good in the world, many of them, or at least some of them, are likely going to be subject to the same pressures and the same external manipulative forces that have ensnared and encaptured a great deal of otherwise well-meaning people throughout the last 7, 8, 9 decades of the American political system existence and continuity forward. And those forces are difficult to resist when there is not a good counterbalance to the equation, when the scale is otherwise not tipped a little bit in your favor. And President Trump is the perfect example of that. This was a human being that simply could not be bribed because he was already a billionaire. He already had everything that he ever wanted. He had a beautiful family. He knew how to protect them. He was loved all over the world. He was especially loved in North America. And so that was someone that could not be affected by those manipulative pressures and sort of shadow state structures that go on in the background, primarily through money and sometimes through other forces as well. But when we look at the emergence of a broad ecosystem, purification by fire, refinement by test of strength alone makes a great deal of sense. And that refinement is going to yield some imperfect examples, right? There are going to be individuals out there that frankly eat the poison apple in some form of or some fashion. And those individuals will walk the journey and reap the rewards of whatever fruit they've sown and consumed and harvested along in this process. And as we go forward, I would encourage the audience and the American people just in general to take very significant stock of the transformation that occurs with relation to the information gradient itself. What are people willing to acknowledge as truth and objective reality? That really is the litmus test in a great deal of ways. It doesn't mean that you have to dwell endlessly on a topic that's unpleasant, but it does mean that you have to acknowledge certain things are in fact true, and we cannot have an honest discussion about what happened to our system and to our ability to control our system until we're willing to acknowledge those things out loud.
That's so good. Referencing the Bible, we're seeing some countries rise their demonic head in regards to, say, two that I'm aware of. We have Canada that is basically declaring that you cannot read certain parts of the Bible. or you'll be fined. And then you have South Africa that's coming up with a new law. And we just received this from a friend of ours who's a minister in South Africa, that this new law will criminalize those that stand for Israel. And that could be if you're praying for Israel, if you're teaching about, the scriptures of Israel. So we're seeing some heads rise up. But for me, just hearing that, what I think about in all this is that just like how we have been rising up and saying, no, we're not going to stand for this, that these countries such as Canada, South Africa, need to rise up even more so. What do you take by that?
Well, it's an interesting point that you should bring those two countries up, because those are both former Commonwealth realms, and those particular groups of nations and the sort of the Anglosphere, if you will, around the world, that entire demographic is especially squeezed. That's the best way to say it without coming off a little bit too graphic there. So what we've got going on in the sense of the pressure against Christianity and the pressure against the principles that Jesus and Yeshua taught in the world, I think we have to acknowledge that that's to be expected in a process where the evil one, quite literally, is flailing about for the remainder of his very short days. And appreciating that the entirety of the political landscape has to eventually come to reflect the broader morality and culture of the peoples, it makes a great deal of sense that this entire issue would also be on the table. And you have a lot of these ideologically driven or ideologically based or faith-based circles that are being heavily tested and frankly heavily infiltrated all around the planet in this day and age to try and, in my opinion, purify a great deal of that from the objective of where God might be. If I could put myself in that shoe for just a moment, I could absolutely see the benefit of allowing a purification by fire process to occur so that the remnant is truly the exact image of what we want here in the world. If I'm going to, if I was endowed with the power to do something like reshape the world in my own image, for example, or in the image of what I think is best, I would want the very best carrying that out for me and alongside me. And so I know that that's sort of a philosophical answer to a very real and very serious geopolitical question, but the response to that, what should be our response as Christians, is to turn the other cheek to an extent, but to not allow the erasure of the identity of Christianity and the principles and teachings that Jesus brought here into the world for us. That is antithetical to the goodness of the gospel and spreading the gospel and proliferating the good news, right? The good faith message. And so there has to be a balance there struck, I think, between the morality component and the political system component, systemic component. And we can't have that discussion until the corruption is out of the political systemic component, because then it's never a reflection, honestly, of what's actually happening with the morality of a society. So it's sort of a circular answer, but it ties back to the same root of the problem. There has to be public awareness increased in such a way that the corruption becomes not only unmistakable, but it drives the population to a point of activity, not violence, but to a point of being active in pursuing their own cultural identity, their own expansion as a free and determinate society, and what they want to have reflective of them at whatever governmental level they choose.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Because we must stand up, just like what you said, not in violence. And, I believe I saw this on Siggy Fligger. She's a dear friend of President Trump's. And she had mentioned, and I didn't hear it, but I take her word for it, that President Trump is now closing the border to all Palestinians, because look what's going on. I mean, in New York, especially, they are rising up, and oh my gosh, in anger and, harming people and rebellion. We have to do something, definitely, in regards to these people who, just spit on the flag, burn the flag, just disrespectful to our country, and expect us to adhere to what they want. Something has to be done, or we're going to be just like, Europe and France and all these other countries that are having major issues.
Well, and it's interesting that you should bring that up, because one of the individuals out there across the alt media space that has really polarized some of this discussion, and I'm not so sure that he intentionally meant to, but he certainly did, and that's Tucker Carlson. And he's hitting on these exact issues that you're talking about. It is not immoral or somehow not of the highest good for the whole to self-loathe and to self-hate and to self-replace. Because what that is fundamentally, it's an orientation of antagonism towards who you are in God and who you are in Christ. We are born in the image that we're born in. We come into this world filled with that Holy Spirit. We're either a male presenting form or a female presenting form. There's no other form that we take. We're part of the duality of the universe, and we have to be willing that everything that goes into us, from spiritual component to melanin to blood to whatever neural programming capacities we have, all of these sorts of things, they are fundamentally good. They are intrinsically valuable. And there is true beauty and true education and benefit in an authentic diversity of the whole. And so looking at what's happening around the world with respect to the ideological questions here, and this is something that I've been tracking myself for the last 12 to 18 months, the narrative has become heavily conflated between two different areas. You have ideological or faith-based viewpoints, and sometimes those faith-based viewpoints are themselves a political end. And then you have actual cultural identity, and those concepts have been divorced in the public narrative for a very long time, but they really should be the same. Because
there's one simple vision hack anyone can use to improve vision, so you can say goodbye to your optometrist for good.
Thousands of people are improving their sight every day, all by doing this 7-second morning rituals. If you wear glasses or contacts and suffer from blurred vision, glaucoma, retinal detachment, cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, macular degeneration, or any other type of vision impairment, then pay close attention.
Because when they're the same, then you take away the charge from it. You take away the overgeneralization, and the sensationalism is no longer appealing because it is that very group keeping itself in check. And so what we've got happening right now across the entirety of the West, to your point, is an effort to reshape the global landscape, or the planet-wide landscape, however you want to conceive of that, and shift things around literally based on melanin and bloodlines. And that's how these individuals at the top of the world, at the top of society, at the near the head of that pyramid of power and control all around the planet over the last 150 to 200 years, that's the only way that they think. They think in bloodlines and ancestry. They think in gene power. They think in DNA power, and they try to shift and move and change the landscapes, biological landscapes, and the macro human genome of planet Earth. And they've done it several times in the last 5,000 years. So what we've got happening is really a question of how confident are we as children of God and creations in Christ, endowed with a DNA of light? How confident are we in ourselves? How confident are we in our ability to blend with one another and to be distinctly unique and diverse and varied, but proud of that and work cohesively as a whole together under all creation? That's the question here. And this is the perfect incentive, these types of inflammations that are occurring inside the West, to include the United States and especially in Western Europe. These are the questions that are incensed off and created as a result of that type of inflammatory activity, but they will last reverberatively for centuries into the future.
Yeah, that's so good, because I know that Psalms talks about how if we dwell together in unity, that there is a blessing in that. And, when you look back biblically, you have Isaac and Ishmael, and that's where the fight and the tug of war that's been going on for centuries. And what a blessing it would be for all people to come together in unity, and yet we have the Muslim Brotherhood that they strategically plan. They have 100-year plan, I believe, and that plan is exactly what you were talking about. Of let's make our mark, let's take over the entire world, and again, it goes back to that biblical struggle of dominance, when in actuality the Lord wants us to come together and work together. So that was a great point, SG. Very powerful. Very powerful. So you mentioned in regards to the military and the the sergeants and the not the upper class, but those that are the grunts, those that are out and on the front line, getting the set, the money of the 1776 amount and so forth. So I know that there's a lot of people that are hearing what President Trump is saying in regards to the taxes, okay, no more taxes. And we all know how that the tax situation, the Federal Reserve and the IRS was a whole system to chain us up, not to give us the freedom that the forefathers wanted us to have. So with all that, do you see that this release of the Federal Reserve, the taxes and everything, would be in the first quarter of 2026, or may that be something maybe that he will announce at Christmas time or around Christmas time? What's your thoughts on that?
It's very interesting. I think the timing around finances is probably above most everybody's pay grade, and those that it's not above are likely not making the rounds on calls like this. But I will say that, as we look at what the pattern has been throughout the last 6, 7, 8 years, really at this point, that financial changeover, the financial transition around the world seems to be volleying back and forth across all of its different nodes and now firing on a lot of separate cylinders. We saw silver decouple from gold I think it was just over the last few days. That's a massive generational move in a marketplace that's heavily suppressed by transnational banking interests. When we look at the meteoric rise of certain crypto spaces, even accounting for some of that being shaved off and siphoned off at the top, you have a lot of just the general population, the ordinary man, the everyday person that owns basic cryptos. XRP is certainly one of them. I think there's a couple of others that would make it into that crowd. And so looking at that, it's interesting that when we look at the tax changeover and what's happening, President Trump talking about these huge refunds, these bonuses to military members, referencing other tax bonuses coming to American citizens sometime next year. I could see that anytime during Q1 or Q2. It would make a great deal of sense, really, to start that process really around the first of the year, sometime in the first 30 to 60 days, if you want people to reconcile their paperwork by April 1. And it's very interesting that we're going into this 2026 year, because 2026 is a year that, if you do the numerology on it, it's a year of new beginnings. It's literally a year that ends in numeral 1. Exactly. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so looking at that, it would make, again, a great deal of sense. You've got this 250th anniversary that's supposed to come. Right. You've got President Trump talking about these ridiculous numbers in tariffs. I mean, he shot off some numbers over the last few days that really don't have any basis in disclosed public record. But when we look at the history, he very rarely asserts things hyperbolically that are never proven out as true. So the type of figures that he's shot off in the last few days, it would make an incredible dent in the economic landscape of the United States. It would unlock tremendous potential at the basis of the consumer level. And it's something that I want to circle back to on this issue, because they're sort of interrelated, in my opinion. I've spaced on it earlier. But it ties back to the address from yesterday, talking about how he's soon going to declare action of some kind to assist with the affordability crisis. And I apologize, I forget if it was the address or if it was one of his speeches from earlier in the day or the day before. But it's been in the last 2 days that he made reference to solving the federal housing affordability issue. Yes. And I can only interpret that as meaning some sort of federal presidential action oriented towards that community. And who do we know caught up in mortgage fraud? We know that there's a lot of politicians that are going to be wrapped up in that. There's a lot of individuals inside the government bureaucracy who are not front-facing politicians, but sort of the same animal, the same creature, if you will, and they're going to have involvement in that. We already know that a Federal Reserve governor was found guilty of the exact same style scheme that was used by Letitia James and Adam Schiff. So if we were to see expanded authority in that region through like an executive order, for example, it would provide a tremendous amount of ability to sort of investigate that entire process, take certain people in for questioning, and really begin to rock the stability of the fraud machine. In other words, the debt-based fraud machine that continues to siphon off the lifeblood of the American taxpayer. And that's a process that has to be done delicately, because if you crash the machine, then you're crashing the organism. You have to filter and titrate and get the fraud out at the same time you put good liquid in. It has to occur simultaneously. And so I'm very cautiously optimistic, but again, very optimistic that we're going to have a significant financial remuneration sometime in the next 12 months. And it would not surprise me if we see President Trump opening with this this first quarter coming out of the Fed and the IRS and U.S. Treasury, giving some of that money back to the American people so that they can reconcile their paperwork in time for the year.
Oh my gosh, that would be so huge. You know, when you look at the 250th anniversary and the celebration that he would like to, that he's been talking about, and boy, people would really be, up to celebrating, with having those, paying no more taxes, having the money that was stolen from us for decades, paying unnecessary taxes. And boy, that would be just amazing. And I sense that that's what we're looking at. And that's my prayer too, because, when you see all these other people that are just dogging President Trump and just don't understand the tariffs and everything, and perhaps
for anyone experiencing blurry vision and concerns about deteriorating sight, do not have another oatmeal before you see this.
When your vision starts to blur or fade, most people think the obvious solution is glasses, reading glasses, bifocals, stronger prescriptions every year. I was one of them. But here's the part no optometrist ever tells you. Glasses don't fix your vision. Turns out they just help you cope while your eyes keep getting worse.
When things start to shift, they'll see this in a whole different light. But then again, there will always be those type of people with us, just like as the Bible talks about, there will always be the poor among us. So, but what exciting times that we are definitely in. And I want to touch on too, the reset and so forth, and the central banking. How do they play in this current global tension? Because some people don't understand that, SG.
Well, if we're talking about just the central banking apparatus as a whole, the central banking system is the root of all of the problems in the Western world and most of the developed and developing world. It's also going to provide us the scaffolding, the infrastructure, and the architecture needed to fix those problems. Mm-hmm. And so looking at what we've got happening in central banks all around the world since the first Trump presidency, what was one of the very first things that the entity called Q Online came out and talked about? It talked about the U.S. gold situation. They talked about the American taxpayers subsidizing literally all of planet Earth. They talked about the Bank of International Settlements owning 209 separate central banking institutions across the entirety of the world, all the way down to things like the Central Bank of Cameroon and the Central Bank of Democratic Republic of the Congo, right? This was a unified evil. It was a unified system that was extremely expansive, and it had ensnared basically all of planet Earth. And so that system was very quickly placed under assault, in my opinion. We've seen a number of different evidences throughout the last 7 to 8 years to show that and suggest that and support that. But that system has been squarely attacked, if you will, by patriotic forces that began really in sort of concurrently with the first Trump administration, and a reorientation of the entirety of worldwide value exchange began to spawn off as a result of that. And so evidences to support that conclusion look at things like the disconnection from sub-Saharan Africa between the U.S. aid arm and Washington, D.C., all of the grain deals struck between Africa and Russia, Africa and China, the China arms dealing that's gone on in Africa and Central Eurasia, replacing the dark arms dealing trade primarily carried out by the CIA in the West and other intelligence communities. Doesn't mean that arms dealing is good. It just means that you're disconnecting one funnel and replacing it with a funnel that's not as powerful, at least for the moment. And that's the dangerous game of risk that has to be played along in this process, just as a sidebar. Look at the things happening in South America, not just now, but all of the things that have happened in South America over the last 4 to 6 years. The Chilean government ordering tremendous amounts, I think it was tens of millions of dollars, to be repaid to the people through the estate of a former Chilean president who was a bought-off member of the intelligence community and the warlord mafia that ran South America for like 35 years. All of these different things, and I could give a lot more examples, but all of these different things show that a massive shift in the way value is exchanged and the way money is moved has occurred around the planet. And when we look at That changeover in the present time, we're seeing gold markets hitting all-time highs, silver markets hitting all-time highs, resource markets hitting all-time highs, revaluation mechanics happening inside of countries in Africa, countries in the Middle East, not the least of which is Iraq, which is a massive central Middle Eastern economy and was, up until the U.S. invasion, one of the crown jewels of the region from an economic clout perspective. That engine is refiring and beginning to prepare to go in a significant way globally and worldwide at the international connection level. And those preparations have been publicly talked about inside Iraq now for 3 or 4 years. This is not some giant secret. And all of that allows for the draining out of the system that formerly was fully liquidated as a constrictor around the necks of every nation on earth. And the constrictor has been removed in many places, has had its lifeblood drained out in many other places, has had a shifting of how it values itself, completely reoriented and remanaged. There's been a lot of significant banking institutions inside the broad central banking apparatus that have just gone straight up out of business and been absorbed by larger ones, which enhances the risk gradient and the risk ratio for those larger ones and places them under a great deal of pressure to either abide by the changes that are happening or risk failing unto themselves. So this broad changeover that's occurring and has been going on for a long time, it will ultimately place the central banking model out of business. But what it will do first is it will utilize that model to shift significant amounts, and I'm talking tens of trillions of dollars of raw resource revaluations, raw resource exchanges, currency exchanges, liquidation of markets around the world. All of that is going to happen as that system begins to fulfill its fullness of its twilight hour, because on the other side of that has to be a self-sustaining economic model all around the world that is interconnected with one another, but allows us to maintain decentralized control. And that is a generational undertaking that will not be complete before the end of this first Trump term, or this current Trump term.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, and maybe another Trump term. We'll see with all this election fraud and everything else, But we're truly seeing a decline of the old system, and I really believe that this is definitely a controlled transition into the new wineskin, I guess you would say. But gosh, you know what? There's still such a disconnect between what people are feeling and what the mainstream reports are reporting. It's like, oh my gosh, why is that? Why is there such a disconnect? I mean, I would think that now people would start really connecting the dots.
Well, it's interesting. I think that we do see a lot of people that are connecting the dots, but we are so flooded with this information warfare online, especially, where over 70% of the accounts that are antagonistic towards sovereign nation issues and supportive of globalist issues, they're just straight up bots. They don't exist. They're robots that are being deployed to shift the entirety of public perception. And when we appreciate the few that are truly real world and the ones that are, having a difficult time coming around to baseline fundamentals, that demographic, in my estimation, is of such an insignificant quantity at this point in the journey that it will sort of self-purge. Some of those will come over to this side with a little bit more pressure and a little bit more heat. Others will quite literally take themselves out of the equation, hopefully not in the ultimate way, but certainly removing themselves from the public discourse on social media. And you're going to have that 4 to 6%, or, I would even say up to 7% or so, or 8%, that are not going to be able to stomach the actual changeovers that have happened in the world. And they will forever be relegated to the mental place of exile, if you will, where their local groups and their small cliques that they find together will ultimately disband in a relatively short amount of time. Compared to the broad civilization, we're talking about a generational process. So it's not, days or weeks, it's usually months or years. But the broad awakening towards the baseline issues, and the reason I have such confidence in this journey that we're still on, even despite the ridiculousness of the present moment, is continuing to go forward. I just saw yet another video of some Xenial ladies, early 20s, really nice girl, seemed to be, very well spoken. You could tell not a whole lot of not a whole lot of experience getting on and sharing her opinions and thoughts and feelings. There's sort of a lot of ums, a lot of hemming and hawing and stuff like that. But she was talking about her movement, her traversal from leftist politics and ideology to conservatism, and she was trying to highlight some of both the similarities and the differences, and she did a phenomenal job, actually.
Wow.
A very well-spoken centrist. And when I said, and the video itself was maybe 2 minutes long, 2 minutes and 10 seconds or something like that, and as I sat and I listened to her talk about the issues and talk about her experiences, I realized that a lot of these individuals on the leftist side, especially in the younger groups, in what we would call the juveniles under the age of 28, 27, 28, and sort of that 9/11 or post 9/11 generation, a lot of them need time to break away from the peer echo chamber, the peer group that they're a part of, in order.
Join ICE with bonuses up to $50,000 and generous benefits. Join.ice.gov.
To actually hear the information. And she described the college situation as being inhibitive of that process because you're essentially in an echo chamber for 2 to 3 or 4 years straight. And so sometimes you can start off in college and you don't actually make your migration to a true point of view and how you feel about the world for 4 or 5 years later down the road. And that was her own personal experience. And she said, once I got away from some of the more negative, insane cult-like influences, that was when I started to realize that there was a lot of commonality between what the conservative side of things or the MAGA side of things believes and what I honestly believe too. I don't want the government telling me that I have to pay more taxes because someone I don't know is frauding the system. And it was a basic understanding of you shouldn't be able to take my lunch money and then expect me to give you more lunch money. And so looking at this process, I'm heartily encouraged. I wish it was going a little bit faster. I think all of us do. But at the end of the day, it is transforming American political thought, and it's reversing the division that has been going on since, at the very minimum, the early 1990s.
Yeah, gosh, that's so good. I actually interviewed a young gentleman, 24 years old, and, he had a bumpy life, and now he's on TikTok. He's got, I think, like 25,000 people that go to his channel, and he just shares about the Lord and how the Lord transformed his life. It was just so powerful and so encouraging, and I'm seeing that a lot in that age group. Our son Noah's like 26, and just this whole Charlie Kirk thing has driven so many of the youth to find out, who am I in Christ? And it's just so refreshing, although this whole thing has been tragic. And, the bickering between, his wife and Candace Owens and I think is there a plot behind that as well? Because we think about, okay, we're really in a movie, but there's a lot of spinning wheels and mechanisms that are happening behind the scenes. So what's your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting and polarizing topic, and I have to say I don't have a lot of thoughts on it, except that it seems very odd to me coming from both sides of the equation. Some of the claims that Ms. Owens has made have just factually not been proven out yet to my satisfaction. At the same time, it makes zero sense for a traumatized mother of young children to be on a media tour within weeks of those very young children losing their father. I mean, maybe there is a family dynamic that would allow that to occur and not create, that perceived distance and enhance that trauma and that loss. I'm not one to speak to those situations. I've never lived it myself. I don't want to be presumptuous in any form. It just seems a bit strange to me. And if I had lost a spouse, the very last thing that I would want to be doing is being on TV. So, looking at what's happening out there in that space and ancillary to that discussion too, we're talking about, interests that are potentially involved in transnational assassination plots. We're talking about infiltrative components of the intelligence community, both in Europe and America, that have spun off from this one single discussion. I can see how the broader takeaway here is that the landscapes between the citizenry, the public, and the elected class are not so separate. They really are blended. There is the same territory here. We get to traverse upon one another from a thought basis and from, for lack of a better term, an energetic share basis. And witnessing the spinoff from this very public feud between Miss Owens and TPUSA in general, to include, Miss Kirk, I think that has ignited broader discussions that ultimately don't have anything to do with either of those two ladies.
Yeah, in some way, I feel like all the attention or all the noise is on them, while there's other things that are happening in the background, because we've seen that over and over again, happen. So, yeah, it's just amazing. So let me ask you this too. What are you hearing prophetically about, the next couple months or so? I mean, is there anything that you haven't shared that has just occurred that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think, and this is probably a great place to offer some closing thoughts too. This entire process has revealed a great deal, I think, to everyone. And while I don't have the type of wonderful analytical and very learned source that I had long ago in the form of my mentor, I've been able to have some very fascinating conversations over the last 12 months about how things have gone with individuals that have been involved in the political process, or have military backgrounds and experiences, or have experiences in fighting law enforcement interdiction operations along like the border, for example, or in various jurisdictions. And the general takeaway, the general flavor that I continue to get back whenever I poll that sort of group, that sort of crowd within my contact list, is that there are significant events that have to happen prior to the 250th anniversary celebration of this country, because this country is destined to be reforged in the same fashion that it was forged to begin with. In other words, a significant, magnanimous breakaway from a draconian and despotic evil. And that entire time frame would need to occur alongside with, or in relative, parallel with that birthday celebration, because 250 is a significant year when we talk about millennial numerology. It's literally a quarter of a millennium. It is a demarcation line in the cosmic energy, if you will. Ecclesiastes talks about everything having a season and a time and a purpose. That's because the Holy Spirit fills this world with different aspects and dimensions of its enhanced energies at different points along the way. And God tells us that and wants us to take advantage of those enhanced opportunities and those enhanced resources. And so, looking at what's occurring in the present day and time, President Trump obviously making an overture to the military yesterday, obviously talking to the American people about fixing some of these issues with affordability, fixing the issues created by an invasion on our southern border. We have him also talking, just a few days ago, or it's been sometime within the last couple of weeks, that, there's a serious economic boom that's going to happen for America. And we're just waiting to see the latent effects of that and how that's going to, carry forth for innovation and all this different American energy projects, both electric and non, and, alternative energy, and how that's being unlocked. There, at some point, all of this has to become publicly visible. Yes. And so in that process, as we go through this season, it would not surprise me whatsoever if we start seeing significant escalations in changes that are happening in the public narrative, both from the discussion aspect and the literal political or judicial landscape, that allows us to move this needle much more forward. And I'll end the note on I'll end on this particular note for this segment. The Supreme Court of the United States still has unheard 2020 election cases.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken, President Trump is a plaintiff or a joining plaintiff in one of those cases. So if we were to see significant progress made towards clarification of that event around the same time that we saw, or adjudication of that fraud around the same time that we saw this birthday celebration, I could absolutely see that momentum carrying us all of the way through the end of this decade with a renewed sense of spirit and a rapidly changing America.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And actually, I just saw something, was it today, this morning, or yesterday, in regards to bringing up the case that the Brunson brothers put forth to the Supreme Court. So I'm like, okay. I mean, it sounded like they were ready to hear it. And so exciting news, that's for sure, SG. And before we head off too, I wanted to ask those, hey, Are you monetizing the Maha movement? Are you looking for something that is actually that will fix your body, that deals with the vagus nerve, that touches over 1,100 functions in your body? Well, if you are,
you're not going to believe what this shampoo does to your hair. I've seen men go from this thin, patchy, receding to this visibly thicker, stronger, healthier hair in just a few months. I'm Mandy, trichologist with almost 10 years of experience. And when I first saw these results, I had to see what was behind them. Spartan works by blocking DHT. That's the hormone that causes follicles to shrink and eventually stop producing hair. But unlike harsh treatments or pills, this one's gentle enough for daily use and doesn't cause irritation. You just wash your hair.
Then I'd love to share a little bit more about our Maha project and our team. Just call the 800 number, leave your name and number, and I or one of our team members will get back with you. We have already just really touched the lives of, oh my gosh, thousands of people. And so if you would like to be one of them, just contact us. So with that, SG, I tell you, lives are being changed. Be it by the Maha Project or just by what God has called President Trump to step into. And it's just so exciting that this being so historical as well as biblical, God has chosen all of us to be a part of this at this time. Wow. How exciting. How exciting.
It only gets better from here. It's going to be an exciting journey as we head towards 2026. And really, Francine, as we look towards the end of this decade, it will be here before we know it. And then we will be on to the next task as the American people.
Oh, my gosh. Absolutely. So, SG, I want to thank you so much for being with us. You know, you have been just, wow, a kingdom changer. And I want to thank you for just bringing clarity to this time, because a lot of people, again, have been feeling so like lost. And yet when they tune in to hear you, they feel more at peace. It draws them more to the truth. And so, you know, it's just such a blessing, again, to have you, you know, because this whole change that's happening right now doesn't have to create fear, because that's what people, you know, tap into. And fear is false evidence appearing real. And that's what they want you to look at. But when you understand exactly what's happening, it creates wisdom. So to all those that are listening, it's not, you know, this isn't about panic. It's about awareness and discernment and positioning yourself at the right place at the right time. So stay informed, stay in prayer, just really stay grounded in everything that you hear right now, and always look unto him, because he is our source for everything. He's the one that's going to guide you through this whole thing. So with that, I'm going to pray real quick. So Heavenly Father, we come in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, our Lord, our Savior, everything. Lord God, we just pray for all those today that are searching for truth, that they've tapped into this interview and that they feel more at peace, Lord Father God, through that truth, through SG Anon. We bless SG Anon and his family, Lord Father. We bless all those that are listening right now. For those that are alone during this whole Christmas season, Hanukkah season, know truly that you're not alone. You can call upon the Lord Jesus Christ, and he will reveal himself unto you. If you need prayer, don't ever hesitate to give us a call or a text, an email. We are here for you, to pray for you. And we just thank you, Father God, for the great and mighty things that you've already done and what you're about to do, Lord Father God. We ask also that you protect our president, those that you've called to be alongside of him. And we thank you for exposing those that have said yes, and that said that, yes, we are for America first, but in actuality have an agenda behind them. Lord, we thank you that you're bringing justice and you're going to expose who they are, Lord Father God. And we thank you for what 2026 is going to be for us, Lord Father. We give you the praise and the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen, SG. Thank you so much for joining us today on Upfront in the Prophetic. We love you, brother.
God bless all. It's good to be here. Have a great day.
Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
Well, all right. I think that about goes through everything. See if anything else has been going on. Looks like the suspect from the Brown University attacks dead. They're found dead. Of course he was.
In the area. It was the same person that we brought into the police station to speak with.
The images that you showed at the beginning, where you can see Mr. Valente's face, where were those images
Portuguese national?
Images taken from?
They were taken from the
bring it up for a
car
second,
rental.
I guess. Well, you guys can see it too. It looks like they think he did both those attacks.
I had a crazy idea. We were surprised that no one had done it before.
Success?
Was anything done to address those concerns about people getting into the
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think we're going to have to look back and say, you know, we don't know how this person got in. We don't know when they came in. We do know that the building was unlocked that day for exams, and that's something we're going to have to
Had
look
you heard
into.
concerns from staff members in the past?
I have not personally heard concerns, but yeah.
Dan. President Paxton, Dan Ganey from NBC 10. I want to go back to the question I asked you Saturday night when I first arrived on the scene. There were no cameras in this building. And law enforcement, some that are standing up behind you, have said if Brown had cameras in that part of the building, we would have gotten this guy. And it may have stopped this swirling action. Can you answer that question, please?
Well, I don't think we have said the locations of cameras at Brown. We have
There's no cameras in that building
we have
because why would they take it from a rental car agency?
we have 1,200 cameras at Brown.
But not in that building.
We have some in that building. It's a large complex. And I think what you would see is the video evidence in this case, from my perspective, I'm not a law enforcement agent, has been incredibly helpful. The moving of the person around the neighborhood, those video images, they help crack this case. So I think video was important. And as the Attorney General explained at a recent press conference, this individual was not spending his time on the Brown campus. He came into a building on the edge of the campus. He left. He was in the neighborhoods. The investigation focused on the neighborhoods. The video was there. And that was really, really instrumental in cracking the case. But you can ask them.
And this is my follow-up, Madam President, if you'd say at the podium. Yes, video played a big role in this case. The neighbor's video, the rental car video, but not the video from the building that he walked in freely both before when he got in the confrontation and when he came back in and decided to kill people. You didn't have cameras in that building. Just say it so we can get this over. And my next question is, will you put cameras in the building?
Yeah.
Will you look cameras in that building?
Yeah, you know, I think we need to look back. We'll look at everything that is done, but I do not think a lack of cameras in that building, it had anything to do with what happened there. And we will go forward. Thank you.
Tom Quinn, WPRO. Colonel Perez, I'm hearing from sources that the person that identified the shooter had to be a homeless person that either lived around or inside that Harrison Holly building. Can you confirm more about this person for us? And then I have a follow-up for President Paxton.
I'll tell you there was a person that was pretty attentive about his surroundings. I'll tell you there was a person that was very cooperative and helpful to this investigation. And I'll tell you that he was a great individual that actually
the White
assisted
House
us
is supposed to
in
hold a
getting us to
press
this point where we're
conference.
at. I'll tell you
Brown
that.
graduate?
He was, yes.
I have to say, he was incredibly articulate and
his testimony, had we needed it, would not only have been credible, it would have been persuasive. He was as outstanding a witness as I've seen, and he deserves a lot of credit. You know, recognizing there's a gunman on the loose, that the gunman knows he had this interaction with him, and he didn't. Once he knew that we were looking for his help, I mean, he came forward within an hour. And that person deserves a tremendous amount of credit. I don't know whether he's going to get the reward or not, but if I had a vote, he would.
All right, Tom, you got to follow. You're done? Go ahead.
My question was for Chair Chapman, if you wouldn't mind. In October, the Brown Daily Herald reported that you had voted no confidence in your leadership, and students were concerned for their safety and the fact that you had prioritised their desk jobs over having over field jobs and having more people patrolling the campus. Now, in light of this, do you accept any kind of responsibility for this? And now that we've given these prior warnings, are you going to reevaluate how the Brown police operate in the future now, so this doesn't happen again and these students can feel more safe on campus when they return?
Right. So as I stated earlier, I'm profoundly proud of the men and women of public safety and profoundly proud of our police department. We will continue with the heroic work that they've done and continue to work side by side with our partners. And everything else that comes with that is a continual effort to do what is best for the safety and security of our campus.
But will you reassess how the people are allocated within your department?
Every single day, we work and endeavor to keep our campus safe.
My wife and I went to Slumberland in search of the perfect mattress, and it did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. We entered the sleep solutions department, and I looked at all the beds, and I thought, we're going to be laying on every single one.
Salem, New Hampshire.
Hold on a second. Yeah, those firearms were found at the deceased body, not in a car. So he killed himself inside the storage unit, and the firearms were found at his in the area of his thigh and in the area of his feet. It was not in a car. There was evidence that was observed from outside the car that matched our crime scenes, meaning mask, clothing, satchel, which you can see on that video. And there was a main plate over a Florida plate. This guy was changing plates. One of the reasons it was so hard to find was he knew what he was doing. He was changing plates. And so, that's why the collective work of following and finding this car was made more difficult, because this guy was changing plates. So we got a main plate and we got a Florida plate on the same car in New Hampshire.
Patrick.
As he was a...
Oh, I'm sorry. Especially,
I was just going to add.
Please.
Tom Greco again from ATF. It's okay. As far as the ballistics evidence, I know that the last question concerned matching the guns found to the crime scene. As several people up here have said, this investigation is ongoing, and in many ways, in some ways, just beginning. Those weapons that were found at the scene, we will be using our tools such as NIBIN to compare the ballistic evidence to see if we have any matches. So we use those tools to rule things in and to rule them out as well. So we'll be following up on that throughout the remainder of the investigation.
Patrick.
Neves Valente was a Portuguese national. Under what status was he in the country, and how did he get into the country? Do we know at this point? And I have a follow-up after that.
You have that, Oscar? Yeah, I think. Yeah, I do. So, as far as we know, he had a student visa. He had came in here with a student visa, and we also had.
All right. Well, if you guys want to watch more of that, you obviously can. It's live. Interesting. They really think it might be the same guy that killed the professor. That's just speculation. So I shouldn't jump the gun. You guys still arguing about the shape of the earth? Someday, we'll know. when that day comes, and you guys I like this ball. She's alive. Yeah, it's funny, right? It's not, it really isn't worth the arguing, but it's interesting because of all the things people argue, whew, you guys get feisty about that stuff. It's interesting. I don't know, I have to do some more fun digging in. We'll all argue it together someday. Yeah, moon pie. There you go. I learned some cool things about Illinois today. I mean, Illinois is a pretty diverse state, There's sand and cactuses here and cool things. Of course, these arrowheads are like the coolest thing. I mean, I love these arrowheads. You can really see them with this stupid light. There you go. Get a better idea. Kind of cool. I've got like 6, 7 of them. I made a funny and I don't even know what it means. Lovely, lovely. But yeah, I got to figure out these lights someday. There we go. It's a little better. That's a little better. What are you guys going to do tonight? Who's making me coffee? Oh, how's it going? You guys still here? No, I'm kidding. I'm surprised more people weren't upset about last night. I thought for sure, I'm like, everybody's going to be pissed off that the president didn't say this or do that. Or you guys are learning. It's funny. Oh, hey. Hi. Hello. You're going to go play old video games and smoke weed. Cool. Like what kind of video games? I have a little old Nintendo. It's got every Nintendo game ever made on it. And I thought about playing Dragon Warrior, but just don't have the time hardly. But, I want to write. Yeah, he's like, you want to rub my belly? That's what you want to do. What you doing, buddy? What you doing? What's on your mind? What you got going on? Can we adjust your bandana there? Yeah. Sugar boy. This is Mr. Chubbs here. Chubbs is a good boy. When I was still on Facebook once upon a time, a couple years ago, I guess, maybe, a friend of mine posted a picture of him at the animal shelter. And I went and got him. He's pretty cool. He's the one they said he doesn't like men. See? He loves me. He loves me. You smile for me? Smile. Smile for the camera. Come on. Show him your smile. Come on. Show him your smile. Show him your smile. If I do it long enough, he'll do it. Come on. Come on. Come on. All right. He's being shy. He's a good boy. The other ones are doing good too. They're sitting right here. They're the wolf pack. Wolf pack. Saying hi to everybody. Say hi to everybody. You just want to cuddle. You just want to cuddle. Is that it? He just wants to cuddle. He wishes he was a lap dog. Yes, I'm a little big. Little big. Hey, little big. Hey, little big. You smile. Smile. Come on. Smile. You're goofy. Anyway. Yeah, he's sweet. He's a sweet dog. Smile. Are you smiling? He'll do the news with me. You do the news with me? Oh, guys. Yeah, he would be the middle. The one that showed up here not that long ago. I have no idea how old he is. He's old, but Chubbs is probably 5 or 6. 5 or 6 now. I love dogs. Dogs are the coolest thing. Well, so we'll see how things progress with the situation, what kind of evidence they come up with, and if they have the same person for the same 2 shootings or what. I don't know. What do you guys make of it all? I know people definitely think Australia was an FF. So there's that. Yeah, cats are cool too. They're just not as friendly as dogs, and they don't catch frisbees. Oh yeah, you could trust your dog with your life. Your dog would do anything to protect you. Well, you guys know I'll be back tomorrow. You call bullshit? What are you calling bullshit on? The dogs rule and cats drool. Oh my God. Da-da-da-da-da. Maine Coon cats play fetch. Do they? I like horses too. Horses are awesome. I haven't been around many horses, but I do love being around horses when I get the chance. Fun, fun, fun. One almost bit my finger off once, I swear. Save a horse, ride a bicycle. I didn't say I necessarily wanted to ride the horse. I might ride it around a little bit, but not like race it. I'm not big on making animals do things, like racing, particularly. Patriots. I am going to go eat something, I think, but I'll be back tomorrow and we'll see where life takes us. God bless you all for being here. And much love. I'm out of energy. I'm tired. Love you guys, though. I do love hanging out. I know it's been kind of droll lately, back and forth, but it'll get better. The weather's been pretty droll too. It rained here, and all the snow's gone now. So there's that. Anyway, rock and roll your way on out of here, and I will see you all tomorrow. God bless you.
You know that life That's right.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights. We've got some difficult days ahead.
And we are going to make our country great again.
I just want to do God's will. I may not get that way, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.